Hi everyone, welcome to the Nordic Football Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss, and I'm joined as ever by Jonathan Fadugba, and this is when things get really serious. It is our first season preview of the year. We're on the verge of the start of the Allsvenskan campaign in Sweden, and I know one man joining me here is extremely excited. Jonathan, how's things?
These are the champions. Hi, Steve. Hi, everybody. I hope you can put up with my terrible singing there. But that is the vibe I'm having in the last few days, getting ready for this season preview. Really, really excited. Great to be joined by you, as always, Steve. This is the FA Cup final week. It's like the biggest week of the season, isn't it, for the podcast in a way? Preparing for the new season ahead, 2021. Allsvenskan starts this weekend. I'm really, really excited. Like I said, I can't wait for it. And I've been doing a lot of background work behind the scenes preparing for it. So, yeah, like I say, it's like when you've made it all the way to the FA Cup final. You're ready. The big day out at Wembley, and this is the big day out for us on the podcast.
I don't think I've ever heard you sing before. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to rack my brains, but I don't think I've ever heard you sing. But not bad, mate. I like the optimism, the excitement that you've got going. Do you know what? I'm actually very excited as well. Norway is not starting for at least another month, 10th of May, I do believe. So I can actually sort of get stuck in a bit to Sweden as well, for the first time in a while, right at the start of the year. So I'm quite excited myself, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you've got to say about the 16 teams. We're going to be talking about every single club in a certain amount of depth for sure. So, if you're a supporter of any of them teams, if you're just new and listening and want to find out about all the clubs in the Allsvenskan, this is the place to be. This is the podcast to listen to. Maybe if you're not, you're looking for a club to support out there, we can find reasons for you in this podcast right now to support a certain club. And so, yeah, I'm really excited, and it's just a few days away.
Yeah, obviously last season, remember, we had the season was delayed and we had to wait till June, didn't we, until the new season started. So I remember I started my preseason preparations, and then obviously COVID came along and everything stopped, and then started again kind of late May preparing. So it was very stop-start. We managed to get a full season between June and December. This time it's been pretty much smooth sailing, more or less. One or two COVID cases bothered the Swedish Cup, which we'll talk about in part 2 maybe briefly. But apart from that, yeah, it's been pretty smooth pre-season for all the clubs. 16-team league, as you will know, anyone who's new listening to this. And, of course, the format for this podcast, as we normally do it, is on the preview show, we're going to sort of predict the full table. We're going to predict every single position of each team and give our rationale behind why. So, yes, I'm really excited to be joined by you all, and I hope you're going to enjoy this 2021 preview podcast. And, of course, follow us on Twitter at Nordic Footpod. If you want to disagree, or you got a problem with our predictions, feel free. It's quite rare that I get them too right, to be honest, in terms of the champions. Anyway, I'm yet to predict a league title winner in this 4 or 5 years we've been doing it. But don't you worry, I'll get there eventually. Steve, before we get into this, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Have you looked into your fantasy team yet? Have you started doing your Allsvenskan fantasy team?
No, because I'm waiting to listen to what you've got to say about the good answer, right? Good answer. But I tell you what, I'm up for it this year because I didn't join the league until I think it was like week 6 or 7 last year, maybe even later. But I will certainly be in the Allsvenskan fantasy. We've got our own Nordic Football Podcast League. You can join using the fantasy code HQ, H for hotel, Q for Quebec, 8, G for goat, U for Uruguay, 7. That is the code. And you can find the code pretty much on loads of tweets. We've got things like that. You will not miss out. So do join the Allsvenskan Fantasy League. It's a different sort of fantasy format to the ones like Fantasy Premier League, Elite Serie Fantasy. There's a few different quirks with the point system, but I'm certainly up for it. I'm going to be going head-to-head with Mr. Jonathan Fadugba in this league. So, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, let's hope you can avoid finishing bottom of the table, which was your position last season. I can't say too much more than that because I wasn't exactly doing too well last season either. I was quite near the bottom myself. But yeah, I think in this show, anyone who's listening to this and has an interest in fantasy football, there's a lot of players we're going to cover. And of course, as always, our annual 10 to watch will come in part 2 of this show where we pick 10 players to keep an eye on. Last season, we had some players who went on and did really well. And usually we did pretty well with our 10 to watch. So stay tuned for that as well in part 2 to come, and you may get 1 or 2 there for your fantasy team. But yeah, fantasy.allsvenskan.se to register your team. And of course, we'll post the links on Twitter at Nordic Foot Pod. You can follow me on Twitter at JFFUTBOL, JF Football. And you can also follow Steve at Meatman Soccer. So, yeah, we'll be posting the links in the build up to the week 1, which begins this weekend, won't we, Steve?
Yeah, we certainly will. And I think it's probably time we got stuck into it now. So I've got to ask you, Jonathan, how's your fence? Is it nice and sturdy? Because you usually do sit on it a little bit with certain things when pressed with predictions and things. So I hope that fence of yours is nice and comfortable. But as tradition does dictate, the first team we always talk about in the season preview is going to be the defending champions. This year, Malmö are the defending champions of the Allsvenskan. Last season, they won the league 60 points on the board. So let's start this thing off, Jonathan. Tell us how Malmö are set for the year 2021.
Yeah, I won't start with the predictions, but we always do start with the champions. So the Bayern Munich of Sweden, as they were described by one of the managers, in fact, last season. They are the champions now. They've regained their crown. It's taken them a while. Obviously, it was the first time in 3 seasons. They've gone 3 years without the title. It went to obviously IFK and Djurgården. And Malmö have picked up the crown in 2020. They're the team with the biggest budget. They're the team with the biggest revenue. You know, they are the big dogs. We talked about it in preseason, one of the preseason shows, I think 1 or 2 shows ago. They are the kind of, you know, they are pretty much the big boys of this league in terms of title wins and things like that. Down there in the south coast of Skåne in Sweden. And of course, they are going to be probably the favourites again going into this season. It's been a bit of a strange preseason for them. Not the greatest of preseasons, if I'm honest. And, you know, we will talk about where they've done well, where they haven't done well. They've had a few key players have departed. They were quite poor in the Swedish Cup as well. They were knocked out of the Swedish Cup early and lost to a lower division team, which was, you know, kind of a quite big shock. So the preparations haven't been, I wouldn't say amazing, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think there's one thing I've learned with Malmö is don't read too much into preseason. Don't read too much into kind of any turmoil you might see in preseasons, because the one thing about them, they usually do get it right as the season goes along, and they will also have that benefit of being able to get to the summer window. And one thing to bear in mind this season, Steve, the summer window comes quite early. You know, we've only got about, I think, another month or so, 6 weeks maybe, or 8 weeks before the transfer window opens again. So essentially, you know, you've got 2 transfer windows kind of quite quick succession. So don't be surprised if, you know, I know the window's shut now, but don't be surprised if we see sort of signings coming in within a month or 2. So, yeah, Malmö are looking strong as always, but I do think there are some weaknesses there that maybe other teams in the league will look to capitalize on and maybe take advantage of.
Yeah, for regular listeners, you know, we have talked about Malmö quite a lot in the off season, in the episodes we've had. Jon Dahl Tomasson obviously had a great first season there at the club, winning them the gold medal. Now, obviously, the first good place to start in terms of transfers, ins and outs. I mean, have they got weaker? Who have they gained so far, or has it been quite a quiet window for them so far?
Well, yeah, it has been pretty quiet, and that's the key really in terms of forecasting where the season's going to go for them. You know, there's no real major signings, to be honest, in terms of, I mean, they have sort of signed some players, but there's nothing, you know, maybe that stands out in the way of other teams. You know, we'll come on to likes of IFK later, and Hammarby been very busy. Other teams have been very active in the transfer market. Malmö have been a bit more quiet. They brought in 2 players that we'll certainly talk about, and, you know, I think they'll have a lot of focus on them. There's one, a 27-year-old striker called Antonio Kolak. He's on a season-long loan from PAOK in Greece. He's got 71 goals in 169 career appearances. He's played in the Bundesliga, played in Poland, Greece. He's got 1 cap for Croatia. Now he's come in with a bit of pomp and circumstance about him, because he said that he's going to be as big as Marek Hamsik in the league this season. So, you know, he's certainly got a bit of confidence there. And he will have a big job on his hands, because there's been a few players leaving the club, of course, in that striking department for Malmö. They've lost Isak Kiese-Tellin. He's gone back on loan. He was a really, really key player for them, one of the top scorers in the league, one of the, you know, big players in the league last season. He was quality. I went on record. We did a podcast towards the end of last season, just recapping the champions. And I said in that podcast that, you know, he was an essential player for Malmö last season, really. They'd lacked someone up front who could put the goals in and sort of be that figurehead up front. And so to not get Kiese-Tellin on a permanent deal, he's still only 28. He's now gone to Turkey. I think it's a bit of a worry. They do have some young players coming in, the likes of Amin Sarr, which we'll talk about, and Patriot Sejdiu, who's a young player who's back from a loan spell. Both of them are 20 years old, but Kolak really, apart from Ola Toivonen, of course, Kolak is the main man up front, and it's gonna be a big question mark as to whether he can continue where Kiesa Tellin left off. They've also lost Marcos Antonsson. It's not probably as big a loss for them really. Towards the end of the season, he became a little bit more on the fringes of things. He's gone to Hamstad on loan, a 29-year-old, of course, formerly of Leeds, wasn't he, in Blackburn? But Kolak is going to be a big transfer. And the other one who they've brought in of note is Veljko Birmancevic. Now, he's got 2 caps for Serbia. He's done well in the Serbian league. Actually, he's got a decent goals and assist ratio. He's come from Kukariki, if I say that rightly. Malmö paid €1 million for him, which is a big amount. So they've really got a lot of faith in this play. He's a 23-year-old left winger. So he will come in probably and occupy that left flank maybe, and also play as an attacking midfielder. So I think they're going to go for a lot of pace down that left hand side. Sorry, they've lost Arne Traustason. He's left now to MLS. They've sold him for about 400 grand. So I think he'll be a probably direct replacement for Traustason. He's got quite a big reputation, Birmancevic. And so in terms of this, those are the major 2 signings I would say. They've got some players coming back from loan. They've got some young players as well to look out for, which we can talk about briefly. But all things said, it's kind of not a huge window for Malmö at this moment in time.
Yeah, Antonio Kolak on loan from POK Salonika, and Veljko Birmancevic. Oh, that's terrible. I've not pronounced that. I've absolutely mutilated that, haven't I? But anyway, both of these 2 players do have a decent market value according to transfer marks. So do look like a couple of good signings. Aside from those guys there, which other key players are going to have a good, strong season for Malmö if they're going to retain the title?
Yeah, well, last season Malmö played a kind of, they tended to eventually Jondal Thomason, who, by the way, he had a really, really good season. I questioned him last season. I predicted Malmö. I think I predicted them in 2nd or 3rd. I didn't think they would win the league, and they did, prove me pretty wrong. And part of it was because Thomason tweaked his tactics. He went to a kind of a 4-4-1-1. He had Ola Toivonen in that kind of a mid position. He had Joe Inge Birgit kind of on the right hand side. They would play some long balls to Birgit. He would win it in the air. Toivonen would be the link man, and they'd play in passes to Kiesa Tellin. Now this season, I think there'll be a few changes from that point of view. I think obviously it means that Kolak will probably be the main man in that striking role. I think Toivonen will continue in the mid position. One big player that I think will definitely, I'm surprised to still see in the league, if I'm honest, is Arnel Almahodzic. Now he's a 22-year-old centre back. He had the distinction of winning the defender of the season, the young player of the season, and he was also in the Allsvenskan team of the season last year. So that tells you his quality. Really good ball playing centre back. Bosnian international now. He was one of the best players in the league last season. Really good pass completion percentage, really strong in defensively. And there was big links that he would move to Atalanta, but the move fell through. So he's still in Sweden at this moment in time. He'll be a key defender if he stays. I expect they'll have sort of Felix Bejmo, who's come back from Werder Bremen. He had a big failure in Germany, really. To be honest, if you remember, Steve, he moved from Djurgården for about £3 million, and he never actually made an appearance for Werder Bremen. He was loaned out, and then he didn't really work out for him. He went on loan, came back, and he's now been signed by Malmö, and he was there last season, of course, but he's still only 23. But I think he'll compete for the right back spot with Erik Larsson. Bejmo is a good player at this level, and of course Jonas Knudsen, his long throws at left back will be vital, of course, as usual. They've still got a lot of quality. I think Adi Nalic could maybe have a bit more impact this season, could maybe a bit more trust in him. Can he win the trust of Jondal Thomason? And then you've still got players like Bonke Innocent, Oscar Levitsi, Anders Christiansen, who's been one of the best players in the league for many, many years. Soren Reeks is getting on a bit now. And there's 3 players maybe I'll leave. One of them I'll leave because we're going to talk about him a bit later. But 2 young players maybe to keep an eye out for. Mubarak Nu, he's an 18-year-old who he's highly thought of. He made his debut at 15 for Osters, and then Malmö signed him a few seasons ago now. He's sort of coming of age now, 18-year-old left winger. And they've also got a lad called Sebastian Nanasi, another 18-year-old. Now, he was on loan at Varbergs Boys last season. Didn't play much, 6 games in Allsvenskan, but maybe there's going to be a focus on bringing through some of the younger players. And another player, which we'll talk about later, is Amin Sarr, the 20-year-old right winger, where I think he'll get a lot more game time this season. So yeah, it's a bit of a younger maybe outlook team, but don't be surprised if Malmo signs some players in the summer window. I wouldn't be surprised to see them bring in 1 or 2 more.
Squad depth itself is one of their massive advantages on a lot of the other teams, isn't it? Like they seem loaded in terms of positions and stuff, and that's important for this season. There are midweek games in the Allsvenskan. They're going to be involved in European competition. This is a major plus area, isn't it? The actual squad depth.
It is, and I think also the fact that Thomason has won the league. He's brought in that hybrid style of sort of Dutch-Swedish brand of football. He's come in where Ove Rosler failed, and he's won the league immediately in his first season. They have lost some big names in the past few years, the likes of Guillermo Molins, who I didn't personally really think that much of, to be honest, but he was a big player. Antonsson, like I say, Kisa Tellin. They lost Charleston now, Fouad Bachiru. So they've had a lot of players sort of leaving in previous seasons. And I'll be very, very surprised if Ahmed Hodzic is there past the summer. So I think they may even need to bring in a centre-back. Now, they do have one young player called Noah Eiley, who is another 18-year-old they've got big hopes for. But I don't know if you're going to ask me for my prediction, but I think the squad is quite strong. And I do think that Berman Savic in particular could be a really good player to watch this season. So I'm quite big on Malmo this season, and I'm going to do something I haven't done for 3 years on this podcast, Steve.
And what's that? I'm
going to predict them to win the title.
You come straight in there with the first place prediction. The defending champions and Jonathan Fadugba thinks that they can get that gold medal again. So, just before we do move on to some other teams, is there any sort of reasons for pessimism with Malmo, or have they got all bases covered?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that in the past, I've never predicted Malmo to win the league, like I say, and I've always sort of overlooked them, and I think this is the first time where I can't really overlook them just because of the strength of the squad. I think back to front they've got the best team. If you were looking for reasons for pessimism, I'd come back to the forward, like I say. There's a big season in store for Kolak. He has to prove himself. Now, don't get me wrong, he's had a decent career in terms of his goal numbers, but I still think that there's a lot for him to prove, really. I'm not too sure. Can he be the man to carry off from where Kisa Tellin left off? Like I say, Kisa Tellin was a key player for them. He scored a lot of goals. He was really, really important to their all-round game, and I wonder about that. I really do wonder about that. And I think Kolak's giving it the big chat, but can he actually do it? Like I say, Kisa Tellin got 14 goals last season, joint third top scorer. He also weighed in with quite a few assists. He was key in bigger games. So the other area is Joe Ingeberget. I know you're not a big fan of him and his beard, but he's getting on a bit now as well. He's a year older. He's sort of 30 now. Toivonen's 34. So they're really going to need the likes of Amin Sarr. They're really going to need the younger players to sort of come through. And there's always those question marks, isn't there, when there's that transition? Can the younger players do it? Can the older players keep up with it? So that's maybe the area I'd look at and say it'll be a question mark. Obviously, Europe as well. How are they going to adapt to the focus of European football? Trying to obviously qualify for the Champions League. So that could affect them as well. And then the other question mark, Steve, like I say, key players. Will Ahmed Hodzic stay? If he does stay, then it'll be a big boost. If he leaves, who do they replace him with? Because they will need a strong centre-back, in my opinion. They've lost 1 or 2 as well. Bengtsson's gone now. And then the other question is, will Thomason stay? Because there's actually been some rumours that he'll move to the Eredivisie. Some reports that teams there are looking at him now to bring him in as their manager. So that'll be another question mark. He's a big name, big famous personality. Will he actually stay in Allsvenskan for another full season? And those 3 things maybe might give the other teams a little bit of hope. But all in all, I do think they're the favourites. And this time I'm going with the big dogs. Okay,
so Malmo, that's your predicted title winners. Who then are you going to be predicting to finish as runners-up this year, Jonathan?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I've had a bit of a debate with you, and I think I'm pretty confident to do it. I mean, the media have also predicted this, so I'm going a bit with it. I like to go against the grain most of the time, but this season, I'm afraid my top 3 is quite sort of in line with the general school of thought, and I've gone for BK Häcken. Now, they could compete for the title, don't get me wrong. I actually think they've got a little chance of maybe competing. I really like their squad, and I really like how they've been developing over the years, just gradually getting better and better and better. And I do think this could be the year now where they've got the most settled squad. I think they've got the most exciting, arguably the most exciting squad in the league. So they've got that blend of kind of, they know what they're doing, but they've also brought in some good names. And I think, third last season. So I think this is, potentially a natural progression.
I mean,
so
this is
second.
Very, very interesting here. You've got obviously Häcken, for those listeners who are not aware, they are another club from Gothenburg. Got Marek Hamsik has gone into IFK Göteborg, and here we are. It might be the team from the other side of the city that kind of is the one that's up there more than IFK. We don't know where you're going to predict IFK yet, though, so it might be that you have them high. But Häcken, then, I mean, they're always up there, aren't they, Jonathan? Since we've been doing these podcasts, I must say they always seem to be hovering around the top 6 at the very worst. I think they've had good cup runs. They might have even won a cup in the time that we've covered this podcast. So what really sort of makes you believe, to be fair, they were third last year, so it's only one more step up. But I think for them to finish second, they're going to have to make at least another 10 points up. I would say they finished 49 points last year. They've got to be up around the 60-point mark to be sort of second, I would say, in general. What makes you think they can sort of make that step up then? You say you're excited about the squad. Tell us a bit more about the squad makeup.
Yeah, well, you're right. They won the cup in 2019, and they're also in the cup final this season. So, we'll talk about that maybe in part 2. They've made their way to the cup final. Looked very good in pre-season, in my opinion. They look probably the most, I think, settled team already. They kind of breezed through. Some of the games had challenges, but they really, I think they look the strongest team in the league in the Swedish Cup so far. Won a cup in, like I say, 2019. They also won it in 2016. But the highest they've ever finished in Allsvenskan is second. So this would be a joint best ever finish if they do manage it. In 2012, they finished in second place. And yeah, I think they can do it again. And I'll give you some reasons why. Like you say, I mean, they finished third last season, 2 points behind Elfsborg. And it was a little bit of a disappointing finish, really, because they were 11 points behind Malmö in the end, but probably should have done it slightly better. I'm going to throw out a few reasons. Now, number one, I really like their recruitment. I think they have some really good players, Steve, actually, that they've bought. And they've been quite active in the transfer market, unlike Malmö. They've brought in a lot of players. Number one in goal, obviously, they got Pontus Dahlberg, who's back from Watford on loan. Now, of course, he came from IFK's academy. We talked about him a lot in the early days of this podcast when he was sort of an 18-year-old. He was sold to Watford and he's not made it there, so he's back on loan now at Häcken, back in Gothenburg. He's 22 now. He's had some bad injury problems and he's had some off-field sort of health problems, which have kept him in a little bit of off the field. But he did play in some of the cup games, and for me, he's a standout goalkeeper at this level. I think he's an elite goalkeeper at this level. In my opinion, too good for Allsvenskan. And I think it's a massive coup that they've kept him for another, I think it's a half season. But, I think having him again is a really, really solid, sort of pickup. They brought in Martin Olsson, of course, formerly of Blackburn. He's played, I think, 200 games in the Premier League. Of course, he was at Helsingborg last season. He'll add a bit of experience in there. They've got a lot of young players that they brought in, Steve, and this plays into their whole sort of youth recruitment I talked about. They brought in a lad from Valur called Valgar Lundahl Fredriksson, is a 19-year-old right back. He played at left back in some of the cup games. I'm not entirely sure if he'll get in the team, but he looks quite exciting. They've also got a young player they've brought from Ivory Coast called Yannick Adjouamani. Now, the new sporting director, of course, replacing Sonny Carlson, said he's a very exciting player and one we followed for some time. So he's on a loan deal with an option to buy. That's the defence. They have lost one or two in defence, obviously. Zutter left, before he gone to Serie B. They've lost Adam Anderson, of course, who's gone to Rosenborg, and one or two others. But and that's maybe the one area I would question in terms of the defence. Is the defence strong enough? But I think Olsen signing, that gives a bit of experience, which is good. They've got Godswill Ekpolo, who's still there, the right back, who's a decent player at this level. But it's really in the forward area and the midfield where they look good to me, Steve.
Yeah, I noticed they lost Alexander Söderlund to a Turkish club, which is a bit of a shame. I do like Söderlund. I thought he could go well at Häcken, but it does. I noticed they brought back Alexander Yeremyev from Dynamo Dresden, £360,000 deal. Now, he's someone that's a proven goal scorer at this level, isn't he, Jonathan? And you're right, they've certainly been active in the transfer market. A couple of Ivorians have come in. youngsters who look good. A nice blend of experience and youth. Tobias Heinz, ex-Sarpsborg player, of course, that's coming from Turkey. I think I've always rated him. I think he can go well. So, yeah, I can see why you're very excited about this squad, Jonathan. If they can the good thing is, of course, we've already had Swedish Cup, so it's not like you need the squad to gel and blend in as well, isn't it? I think they can hit the ground running straight away. But, I mean, Yeremyev, how important is he going to be?
Massive. And, I'm going to go through the midfield and attack because really this is where my rationale for them challenging for the title comes in. And I do think they can challenge for the title. And I do actually think, Steve, that it's time for a bit of pressure on Häcken. They've always been a nice team. They've always been a team where you say, oh, well, they kind of get patted on the head a little bit. And it's like, oh, well, they're developing nicely, aren't they? They're in their little stadium in Hisingen. They get sort of, I'm not saying overlooked, but they get a little bit dismissed amongst all the big boys in Allsvenskan. You've got traditionally bigger teams, haven't you? Or IFK, Hammarby, Malmö, Norrköping. And Häcken kind of sometimes just, like I say, get maybe not patronised, but they do get looked down a bit. I think it's time for a bit of pressure on this team now. I think it's time for them to step up, and I think they've got the ability to do so. And I'm going to explain why. Of course, we'll start with Yeremyev, like you say. He's back up there. They paid 360 grand for him. To me, in pre-season in cup games I've seen, he looks a more complete player. I think the trip to the Bundesliga to Fire will have helped him. I think he looks a more rounded player now. I think he's going to come back now with a bit of arrogance about him, a bit of confidence. He's still only 27, so I think he's got the ability there, to sort of really pick up. Söderlund's gone. Didn't really work out for him in the end. I thought he looked good in the early days, but I was surprised that he left. He's moved to Turkey. But yeah, I think Yeremyev can carry the can up front. They've still got Yassi Tuominen as well, who has some ability. And they've also got a young lad that I definitely think we should note, and I may well talk about him a little bit later, called Leonardo Farah Shaheen, who's a 17-year-old who's been linked with quite some big Premier League clubs. Now, I think he could have a say as a young player, maybe off the bench this season, one to keep an eye on. And then you look at the midfield, and I'm just going to list off some names before I sort of talk about them. You've got Daleho Erendust, who's moved to Toulouse in Ligue 2, fell apart. So he's still there. He's injured at the moment, so he start the season injured. You've got Jack Lane, who's on loan from Amiens. Now he hasn't really found his place yet, but as a 19-year-old, he's still got a lot of ability. And I think that smaller pitch could help him at Häcken. I think it could be the right move for him, right place for him to maybe recapture some of his early form at Bromma Poikina. They've got a young lad I'll talk about later called Benny Traore, a right winger, 18-year-old from the Ivory Coast. I've really liked him in pre-season. Tobias Heinz, you mentioned, I think he could be a breakout player in the league this season. I think he could be a top player. 3 assists in his first 4 games for Häcken in the Swedish Cup. And I think he looks really, really good. You mentioned he was at Sarpsborg, and he's come from Turkey, and he's playing an attacking midfield role at the moment. And he can also play off the left. And I think at 22 years old, he's definitely one to watch. Leo Bengtsson, I'm going to talk about later. I really like him. Another 22-year-old. Patrick Wallenmark is another one. I know he's been linked with sort of big clubs abroad. And the names just keep going. William Milovanovic as well is one to look out for, Swedish under-17 international. So really, Steve, like I say, they're quite stacked, I think, in midfield and attack. And a lot of young names, so they're going to be exciting to watch. They may not be that consistent, but there's a lot of ability in this squad.
What sort of style are we expecting from Häcken this year? Tell us a bit more about their manager, the tactics, and what you're expecting on that side of things.
Yeah, the manager, Andreas Alm, he replaced Mickey Stara a long while ago now. He's been there, I think, 3-4 years. I think this is his 3rd or 4th season. It will be probably Darberg in goal. I think it'll be a 4-2-3-1. Probably Ekpolo right back, maybe potentially, or Fredriksson potentially, maybe. Olsen, I think, maybe play as a left back. If not, maybe Oscar Sverrisson or someone else potentially. They've got a lot of versatility in those back places. I am a little bit concerned about the centre backs. I've always liked Johan Hammer. Used to play for Everton, but if I'm honest, can he lead a title charge? I'm not sure. You've got Yuna Toivo in there as well. Rasmus Lindgren is 36. So you've got Tobias Karlsson. So I would say maybe that's a question mark. Can the centre backs do enough? Is the back four good enough? I think that's maybe where they'll fall down in terms of winning the league. But yeah, I think it'll be 4-2-3-1. I think you'll see 2 defensive midfielders probably it'll either be Falsetas Friberg along with Gustav Berggren. Then you'll see Heinz, I think, as an attacking midfielder. You'll see right wing, I think you'll see Benny Traore. I definitely think we'll look out for him this season. I think you'll see on the left maybe either Jack Lane. You could play Ali Youssef or Leo Bengtson. I think Bengtson will probably take that spot to begin with. We haven't even mentioned Erendus yet, so where's he going to fit in? Maybe compete with Heinz. I think they'll try and look to shift Erendus in the summer because it's almost like there's no place for him now. But if he stays, he's a big player. And then, of course, up front, you've got Yeremiev. So 4-2-3-1. That'll be it. They'll look to counter-attack. They'll look to have fast-breaking play. Traore is a quick player. Bengtson's very creative. Heinz very creative. So, yeah, it's just maybe at the back. Can they keep out the goals to sort of maybe be strong in these tough away games, which is a big question mark, really.
Yeah, they do sound like a very exciting team. They're going to be in Europe, of course, so they're going to have that to deal with as well. It sounds like they've got a fairly decent squad in terms of depth to deal with it as well. Just before we do move on, I mean, I'm not going to ask you this about every single team, but from a neutral point of view, if you're after a sort of a new club to support in Sweden and that, I think you could do a lot worse than Häcken. Would you agree with me there? Because they're kind of an up-and-coming club, aren't they? Exciting. They've historically had some success, but they're not like, they've been overshadowed by that big boy neighbour, IFK Göteborg. Would be a good club for someone new to get on the back of.
Very exciting. I think they'll be, for me personally, in terms of teams to watch at the beginning of the season, I think they're the most exciting team to watch. They'll be the team I start watching from the beginning, if that makes sense. They've got Halmstad on the first game away from home. I'm expecting quite a sort of comfortable win there. It'll be a surprise if they don't win that game. And from there, it will just be, can they get that momentum? We talked about them in the last podcast. So I would suggest if anyone wants a bit more information on Häcken and why you should support them, their history in terms of Gothenburg, their rivals IFK, go and listen to that podcast. But I like them a lot. Like I say, I lived very close to the stadium when I was living there. Really nice club, family club. I think they've done things the right way in the last few years. So I think their success is deserved. I think it's been built on solid foundations year by year. And that's why I think this year they'll kind of take that next step to second. And ultimately, like I say, why can't they win Allsvenskan? With the ability they've got in that squad, why can't they be challenging? I think this is the year now to really start saying, listen, we've got bigger ambitions than just being a nice team in this league who play nice football. They're not really, if you're looking at the Premier League, they're not a nasty team. That's the only thing I would say. They're not a kind of Stoke. They're not they're not in your face. Malmö can get in your face and mix it up when they need to, grind things out. And there's a few other teams in this league that can grind. Häcken haven't quite proven that they can be nasty. And I think that's maybe the one area they might fall down if they can get that nasty element to them. And I think Yeremiev could play a part in that. He's come back with that experience from Germany. Maybe he can be that man up front and just add a bit of grit about them. Then that will help them. But yeah, they're a really nice club. I really like them. I've got a lot of time for them, and I think people watching them will enjoy it this season. Yeah,
and you might have done them a favour by predicting them second and not winning the league, Jonathan. So yeah, BK Häcken, a club you are predicting them second place to win the silver medal. Now we are going to go to Stockholm now, and I can reveal that only one Stockholm team is in your predicted top 5. So this is going to be interesting which team this is. You can now reveal who you're predicting for the bronze medal.
Yeah, when you put it like that, I didn't actually think about it that way. But you're right. There's only one Stockholm team, which I might have a bit of egg on my face at the end of this season if the other two teams sort their act out. But in third place, I'm going for Djurgården, and again, I'm going for the media prediction as well. They've predicted them in third, so I don't like to sort of agree with people, if that makes sense. So I'm a bit disappointed in myself for not being a bit left field there. They finished 4th last season. And I think this season they'll take an extra step third, and I think they could compete for the title as well.
Yeah, the champions of 2019, of course. So they do have recent pedigree. And in terms of the managerial, are we still looking at the joint managerial duo there at Djurgården, Jonathan?
We are indeed. Luckily for them, recently I think renewed their contracts. Well, at least Kim Bergstrand did. I think Tom Slagoff did as well. Kim Bergstrand's very lucky to keep his job. I mentioned in one of the preseason podcasts. He said some very untoward things, maybe just out of place. Like I say, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because I think, from what I understand of him, he seems like a nice guy. But yeah, he made a few comments that I think in England would have got him the sack. I think he would have been out of a job. Long story short, he compared. Long story short, he said that there's something to be learned from the Nazis, which, let's face it, Steve, in this day and age, probably can't get away with that. With I think it was misplaced, like I say, and you can go back and read the comments and stuff like that if you want a bit more context. But I'm not going to go into it too much now. But everybody makes mistakes, and I think it was more out of turn than anything sinister. He's kept his job, and he is, for my money, one of the best managers in this league. I think he's proven himself. I think he's always got bright ideas. I think he's always looking to regenerate the team. They did really well at Sirius, the duo, of course, before they moved to Djurgården. This is their third season now, fourth season. So they're creating a bit of a legacy at Djurgården. And that contract will be probably, in terms of on the field matters, certainly deserved, in my opinion. Now, this is a team, Steve. They've had a lot. I mean, we could be here for 10 minutes talking about their transfers alone, because there's been heavy changes to the Djurgården squad in this window. And so I'm going to just literally run through some of the names that they've brought in. You can maybe ask me about them, but I won't dwell on too many of them. Alexander Vasutin joins on loan from Zenit in goal. They've also brought a young player back called Jacob Vidal Zetterstrom. He had a career break with a really serious concussion. It's really nice to see him back. He'll probably be the second or third choice goalkeeper. They've still got Tommy Vaiho, of course, in goal as well. So they've got three sort of fairly strong keepers. They've brought in Jesper Lofgren at centre back. I think he was previously at Brann. They've got Leo Kornick, who we'll talk about maybe in a bit. Axel Wallenborg, Isaac Heen. So they've bought quite a few players from the third division of Sweden. All three of them have played in the third tier before. They've bought Hamar Ekdal, who was statistically one of the best defensive players in the league last season, from Sirius. I think he's going to be really good this season. I think he's one to watch. They brought in Elias Anderson from Sirius again as well. He had a very good season there. Rasmus Schuller, who I like. He's coming from HJK Helsinki. Albion Ademi, left wing. Hampus Findel has come in as well. Peter McGregor. Now, this is a bit of a random signing. They've signed him from Jamaica, the Jamaican league. So I don't know who's scouting that league, but fair enough to him. Peter McGregor joins up front. And the big name really is Joel Asoro. Now, he's come back from Swansea City. He went to Sunderland as a 16-year-old. And he's the big name, probably one of the biggest signings of this window in any division, in any league, in any team. So Asoro's the big name signing. But as you can see there, Steve, a lot of changes and a lot of players have left as well.
Peter McGregor is a Jamaican guy, centre forward from Duhaney Park in Jamaica. I mean, what a name for a Jamaican, Peter McGregor. I mean, I've obviously watched a lot of cricket, West Indies. It doesn't sound like a sort of name that would prop up in one of their teams, but he's already intrigued me, that guy. I want to get him in my fantasy team straight away.
He's got a very sort of like reggae kind of name, in my opinion. I'm thinking like Peter. Maybe I'm thinking of Peter Tosh, but he's got a very sort of Peter McGregor. Just got a kind of a reggae name, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know how they've scouted him in that. I've never heard. I've literally, and I like to think I know quite a lot about football. I've never heard of that team in my life. So whoever's doing the scouting at Djurgården, to pick up, we'll see how it goes. But he's got a lot of competition because they've got quite a few top strikers in that forward line as well. They've got Emir Kujovic as well. They've got Kalle Holmberg and they've got Eduard Chilufya. So old McGregor's going to have a bit of competition there, but maybe he's one for the future.
I actually watched a Jamaican team play in the CONCACAF Champions League a year or two ago. Can't remember what they were called, but I think they got battered on aggregate. But yeah, I do have a little bit of a pedigree in Jamaican football. But yeah, I mean, just looking at their transfers here, it's sort of in out, shake it all about, isn't it? There are so many ins and outs of the team. One departure that really stands out to me, though, and I'm kind of surprised you predicted him so high when he's departing. Fredrik Ulvestad has been such a key player for Djurgården in the last few years. That's going to be a massive loss, right? Yeah,
it is. Obviously, he's played for Burnley in the past. He's played for Charlton Athletic. He's 120 plus games in Elite Serien as well, Norway International. He's gone to China, so he's I'm not sure if he's going to be getting paid much because that league has kind of had its problems in the last few weeks. So it's not necessarily any more of a lucrative move. I don't know. Maybe he is, but maybe he got in there, before the doors shut. But he'll be missed. I think I was, like you, a bit surprised he left. Like I say, Djurgården seem to quite like rotation, and I think that's why I've got them in third. I think to blend all this together to win a title is going to be a real challenge for the management duo. But they've brought in a player who I think will potentially replace him quite well, and that's Rasmus Schuller. Now, I've seen bits of him in pre-season, and I like what I see. Spreads the play nicely. He's a good ball player, can play off his left foot, good distribution, short, medium, and long range passing. I saw him in a couple of preseason games, pinging crossfield passes and that. And I think, obviously it's only preseason, so it's hard to judge, but I did like little bits I saw of Rasmus Schuller. 44 caps for Finland. He's played at BK Häcken in the past. I think he could be an interesting signing for them. He's 29, so he's experienced. And I also think there's going to be a step up for Emmanuel Banda. I think there'll be more expected of the Zambian international. Didn't really maybe have a huge impact last season. I think he joined from Belgium, but he also looks quite strong in that centre midfield. So I think those two potentially could maybe alleviate the loss of Ulvestad. And they've also lost Astrid Adjeravic as well, and Kevin Walker. They've lost quite a few players as well. Jesper Karlstrom's gone to Lech Poznan for 720k. So that's 4 big names really in that midfield. Jonathan Ring as well has left. That's 4 or 5 big names.
Yeah, there's a lot of ins and outs. And by the way, Schuller, I've seen him at Minnesota United in MLS. I rated him as well. I think he's a good signing. But in terms of Djurgården, they won the league, and they've basically gone from losing just 4 matches to losing 10. They've had the same number of draws as they had in the title-winning season. It's just 6 wins turned into defeat. So how can they turn that around and get themselves back into this bronze medal position? It looks like they've signed well in terms of plenty of new additions. Is it about this team gelling now and getting an identity back? Because they were quite strong defensively in the title-winning year. Do you see them becoming a bit more solid defensively once more?
They're going to have any kind of title say. I think Djurgården, they do have a chance of challenging for this title. I like the managers, like I say, so I do think they'll have, they'll have something to say about the league this season. In my opinion, they didn't start hugely well, I didn't think, last season, and it kind of went from there. I thought they kind of, like you say, they lost too many games. They lost 2 of their opening 3 games. Really they went through spells of losing quite a lot. They lost to Falkenberg, they lost to Mjällby, they lost quite a lot of big games really. Lost at home to Örebro, and they lost quite a few derbies as well. They lost obviously at home to Hammarby, and that kind of thing. Lost to Helsingborg, who got relegated. So lost to 2 relegated sides, for example. That's not really good enough. I think this season they'll look to start quicker. I think the problem is, can those players gel? And that's why I've got them in 3rd, because I think it's going to take some time. I think maybe you could look at them for next season, potentially winning the league. I think a key, Steve, is going to be Joel Asoro. How does he adapt? Now, I've been watching him a bit in pre-season, and I've actually got a Y-Scout blog coming out about him, so I won't say too much, but I'm delighted to say we're renewing our partnership with Y-Scout for 2021. So we'll continue the blogs this season, and it's going to be great to bring you more statistics and data around the Allsvenskan. But I've written a blog about Asoro because he is a big name signing. Now, I know there's bigger names that we're going to talk about later in the league who've joined, but Asoro went to Sunderland in 2016, and when they were in the Premier League, don't forget. And he was a 16-year-old at the time. Manchester United wanted him. He trained at Chelsea. He came from Bromma Poikina, of course, as almost everyone does these days. Any youth player pretty much. But it really didn't work out for him at Sunderland. Obviously, they got relegated back to back. Went down to League One. He then left to Swansea for 2 million. Played under Graham Potter. He was Potter's first signing. But Potter didn't really play him much. He played him on the right wing. And Asoro really is a striker. Now, Asoro said that he's had personal problems in the last few years that have affected him. And he gave quite an honest interview when he joined Djurgården and said, listen, now I want to make a career and I want to prove myself. And although I'll be honest, Steve, he's looked not very sharp in preseason. He's looked a little bit, rusty. I think he'll need a few months to settle in. But if he does hit the form that he's known for, he scores some quality goals at Sunderland and also at Groningen on loan. So he's got ability there. And also, we'll talk about him later, but Edouard Chilufya, I think this could be the year for him, really. I think there's a big player there, potentially. So they've got 2 forwards who can score the goals. Schuller, like I say, I really like. Elias Anderson is a good player. Banda, I like. Question marks maybe about Curtis Edwards and Nicholas Barkroth, who I think will probably be in line to start. Can they carry a title-winning team again? We'll see. Getting on a little bit now, maybe Barkroth 29. And also the big thing in this squad is really they've got a lot of rotation in that centre-back position. And they've got a lot of young names coming in. Leo Kornic is only 20. Isaac Hein is 22, but they've all played in the 3rd tier. So there's going to be big question marks about them. I think Ekdal is a really, really good signing from Sirius. And obviously they got left back and right back, Elliot Shesh and Aslak Vitri, the guys who won them the title that time, the two full backs. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting team. I think they'll be an interesting watch for sure. But I'm not sure if they're quite as blended and gelled as say Häcken or Malmö.
So third place prediction for you for Djurgården. And now the team that you're predicting fourth, I'm actually going to introduce them myself. We usually give them like a 1 or 2 minute slot in our pre-season podcast preview around mid-table, but not this time. We're going to give Elfsborg a little bit more love. They were the surprise package last year, finishing second place. You're actually predicting them fourth this time, a little bit of a drop down, but still very, very respectable enough. And now I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who do not know much about Elfsborg. We did discuss them quite a lot last year, in fairness. So for those regular listeners, you should know a little bit more than the previous campaign. So tell us what was so good about Elfsborg last year, Jonathan, and why you think they can sort of maintain their spot in that top 5.
Yeah, I think the first place to start is if you are a supporter of any team in Allsvenskan this season, we want to hear from you. So if you do actually support Elfsborg and you're listening to this podcast, please tweet us at Nordic Footpod. I'm going to sort of tweet maybe as the season goes on, but I want to find the supporter of every single team in the league this year. And, maybe we can even get you on the show. Maybe we can sort of bring you in. Maybe we can ask you about games and things like that. So I want to find an Elfsborg fan, because I know that there was one podcast we did last season and we had quite a bit of feedback, didn't we, from 1 or 2 fans. And I know they're quite well supported team, Elfsborg. They got a proud history. So if you do support Elfsborg, get in touch, because, we didn't talk about them much in the previous years, but second place finish last season, they were fantastic. They do have a relatively strong history in the yellow and black, a bit like Häcken in those yellow and black shirts. And I think they've got a decent squad. I think they lost a few names. They are 6-time Swedish champions, so they've got real history. Not won the league since 2012, but they have got ability. In terms of why I've picked them in fourth, I think I was probably quite harsh on them last season. I think I had them, can't remember where I had them, but it was nowhere near second. And I think Jimmy Tellin now has maybe proven my concerns maybe a little bit wrong. One thing I really like about Elfsborg in recent seasons is I think their recruitment has been spot on. I think they've got things right where previously they didn't. I used to think with Elfsborg they were just a bit of a nothing team. They had a lot of decent players with potential, but they never really maybe got enough game time. It was always a bit mishmash. This year they haven't brought in too many new names, but the names they have brought in, are players that I think are worth watching. So I'll just run you through some of them very quickly. They brought in Simon Anderson from Brentford B. He didn't make the grade as a goalkeeper. He was just a young player, so I don't know if he'll start. I mean, there's a lot of rumours that Tim Ronning, the goalkeeper, first choice goalkeeper, there's a lot of rumours he might go to Celtic. So if that's the case, then maybe Anderson's going to come in and be an instant replacement. They've also got Matthias Dingeland, who maybe could compete. They've brought in a guy on loan, 23 years old from Austria Vienna. His name is Maudu Jarjaway. Now he's a centre-back. And one thing I have to say is we talked about Joseph Okumu on the podcast. He was in our team of the season. And we recently put out a tweet about him and the links to Rangers. But, in the past, maybe I would have been a bit questioning who on earth is Maudu Jarjaway. But the fact that Elfsborg's recruitment has been quite good recently just makes me think to myself, maybe there's a player here. So we'll see. The jury's out. He's played in the Azerbaijani Premier League mainly. So, it's a bit of a weird one. But, Okumu played in the second division in America. So, they picked him up and he was fantastic for them. And he's a really, really strong player. I've seen him compared to Van Dijk in recent days from the Elfsborg players. So we'll see how Jarjaway gets on. They brought in a defensive midfielder called Andre Roma, mainly played in Denmark. And they've also got a young player who they signed called Ahmed Kasim. Now, he nearly made my 10 to watch. He's a Swedish under-17 international. I think he may even make it, actually. I'll reveal that later. But he's a left-footed player who's got a lot of potential. And then, that's pretty much it in terms of recruitment. But in general, although they have lost some players, which I think is the reason why I've got them a little bit lower down. And if I'm honest, I think Okumu will leave in the summer latest because there's a lot of interest in him. They do still have a lot of strong players. Johan Larsson was unbelievable last season. Best right back in the league. He's still there. They've got, Leo Väisänen, who's decent. still got a few decent names in that squad, I think, and they've got a few young players as well with some points to prove. The likes of Kevin Holman as well. I think it's a bit of a funny situation, this Steve. He is actually the nephew of Samuel Holman. So uncle and nephew could play in the same team this season. Samuel Holman, 36, Kevin Holman, 19 years old. So you could have a centre midfield of uncle and nephew, which will be quite an interesting one. But yeah, they've got a few decent players. So I've got them in fourth.
Yeah, just a personal word of warning to Elfsborg, because I just noticed they lost Sivert Helten Nielsen to one of the Belgian teams who doesn't get a Belgian from the Allsvenskan. Now, when Bran lost him, Bran kind of, their midfield just dissipated. They were never the same without him. I just wonder whether he could be one of them underrated players that kind of goes under the radar. They might struggle with him out of the way. Obviously, they lost a bit. Their top scorer, Carlson, left them as well. Still relying on Per Frick and Rasmus Alm for goals. But, I mean, they look an interesting team. They, you never know quite what you're going to get with Elfsborg. But they only lost 3 matches last year. 15 draws. That's incredible. Half their matches ended draws. So, yeah, I mean, if those draws, you're not going to have as many as that again, aren't you? But it's just a question of how many of those draws turn into wins and how many turns into defeats, really, in my opinion. But fourth place finish, you've got them for this year. So we'll move on. We'll move on to your next.
Just quickly before we do move on Elfsborg, I think the big question mark with them is going to be the forwards, as you said. The media have predicted them in sixth, and if I'm honest, I could see them dropping because, like you say, they've lost a few key players. So I think it's an optimistic fourth. I think I'm paying a lot of respect to how they did last season, really, and I think there is equally a good chance they could drop further down. So I'm not sold on them definitely being fourth, and I think the big question mark is, can Per Frick score the goals really that they need? Because Carlson scored a lot of goals before he left. Frick scored, I think, 10 goals. But the only other backup they have is a young player called Moroccan Dioni, who I really, really like, by the way. I've talked about him a lot. He was in my 10 to watch a few years ago. I saw him out in Sweden live, and I like him. Is this the year for him to step up? Maybe. He was on loan at Örgryte last season. And they've also got a young 19-year-old called Jack Cooper Love, which is a fantastic name, by the way. But he's a player to watch. So I do worry if they've got enough goals in them. But I'm giving a lot of respect to Jimmy Tellin here and the way they built their squad and also the recruitment. So that's where I've got them in fourth.
I like that from you, Jonathan, because you've I'm not saying you've eaten humble pie here or anything, because, I know in the past you've doubted him, but I like how you're giving him a bit of respect here after what they did last year. I say fair play to you there, for sure. So, right, we'll move on. Let's just run through your 5th to 8th sort of predictions now, and then we're going to talk about these clubs individually. There's some really big dogs in this section, by the way, so definitely keep your ears peeled. Yeah,
so any team who's not here in the top 4, obviously, it's a big names, isn't there? So we've got Norrköping 5th. Don't know if you want me to say this.
Yeah, go through them, yeah.
Okay, I've got Norrköping 5th. I've got Hammarby 6th. I've got IFK Göteborg 7th, and I've got AIK 8th. Now, this is very subject to change. Norrköping finished 6th last season. I've got them 1 place higher. Media predicts them 5th as well. Hammarby finished 8th last season, so I've got them slightly higher. Media predict them 4th. IFK finished 12th last season, so this is a big rise. I've got them 7th. I don't think they're going to compete for the title. A lot of people said they'll compete for the league this season. I just don't see that personally. But I think they're going to be a really exciting team to watch, and who knows where they could go, to be honest. And then AIK, which is quite far down considering they won the league in the last 3 years. But the media have got them 7th. I've got them 8th.
Yeah, now Norrköping, we've talked quite a lot about them in recent episodes over the winter. Plenty of change on and off the field there, that club. They always seem quite an exciting team to watch for me, but they've got a different manager now in charge. It's going to be probably different styles. You see them down there in 5th place. Is this going to be a year of transition for them?
Big transition. Real change, not just in the playing squad, but also at boardroom level. They've been a team in crisis this last sort of 6 months. People resigning left, right, and centre. I think even the dinner lady resigned. The toilet cleaners resigned. The chairman of the board has resigned. The staff has people are resigning left, right, and centre. It's been a really you laugh about it, but it's actually been quite a it sounds like quite a nasty place to work, if I'm honest. In terms of behind the scenes, there's been a lot of rancor really A lot of bad blood behind the scenes at Norrköping, which is a real shame because I think they're a nice club, and I thought they were going in the right direction for quite a while, and I predicted them to win the league. I think was it if not last season, then the year before. So the year before it was, wasn't it? But it's a shame to see how they've gone, but it's real upheaval. They've brought in 2 new goalkeepers, so they've got 4 goalkeepers, which is going to be a bit strange. They brought in Oscar Janssen, who won the goalkeeper of the season last year, of course, in Allsvenskan. He's come from Örebro on a free. I'll be honest, Steve, I'm not convinced. I think it's a slight downgrade from Isak Pettersson, who's gone to Toulouse. I do like Janssen, but I think there are a few question marks still about him. I think he's good level for Allsvenskan, but I don't think he's top quality like Pettersson, who I think is above Allsvenskan level. They brought in a few others, Victor Guardias, who's a sort of veteran. But the main thing really, I mean, we'll talk about their squad in a minute in terms of who they brought in, but the main thing really is the new manager. Of course, Rickard Norling. Yeah. He replaces Jens Gustafsson after I say, several club departures behind the scenes. But I think getting Norling in is a real step in the right direction. I think he's got a lot of pedigree, very sort of good reputation in Sweden. He's won the league. He's been there and done it. And I think he will maybe settle things down a little bit. And that's why I've got them where I have.
He's got a good reputation, and I can't deny that. But he's quite a boring manager, isn't he, with his approach? I mean, I used to turn off the IFK matches, I must say. Sometimes I just couldn't watch them. His sort of style. I mean, for those who are unaware of him, I mean, Norrköping in the past, I always considered them this sort of exciting, end-to-end, free-flowing team. That's going to be completely thrown out the window now, isn't it? Because Norling is known for his more defensive style.
Well, he certainly was at IFK, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, he also won the league at Malmö in 2013, so he's got a long and sort of a solid track record at Allsvenskan level. He is a solid sort of 3-5-2 man, 3-1-4-2 maybe. You're right, Steve. His managerial career is very sort of built on being solid. Definitely at IFK anyway. But he had a fantastic points per game ratio, 1.94 points per game over 163 matches. That is some record across 4 years. So, although he didn't do so well at Brann, he obviously managed Brann back in the past, and his points per game there was quite poor. At Allsvenskan level, he's looking at he's at about sort of 1.9 points per game average over a good 6-7 years now with Malmö as well. So he's a proven winner, basically. Bottom line here is 5th might even be. I think he'll need a season or two, as he did at Malmö and as he did at IFK to get things in place. But I don't think they could have got a better manager, to be honest, to replace Gustafsson. So he'll be a sort of 3-5-2 man. He'll look to sort of be solid. I don't think it's going to be the case this season, Steve. I know you said that they might be boring. I don't think it'll be the case simply because I don't think their back line is going to be good enough. So I think they will leak goals. They lost a lot of big players. Philip Dagerstad's gone. Lars Krogh Gerson's gone. Rasmus Lauritsen, obviously, he left last year, but he, for me, was the best player in the league for quite a while before he left. Knocked out Spurs in the Europa League recently with Zagreb now as well, so he's doing well. They've brought in a few players, like Linus Wahlqvist has come back, and he'll be their sort of captain, I think, now. So he's a good sort of return home. Guardias, like I mentioned, had a good season at Mjällby. He's a bit old now, 31, but he's got a solid track record. They've brought in Marco Lund, who's come from Odense, regular player in Denmark, centre-back. So I think, he'll be a solid 3-5-2 man. Big question marks, though, Steve, will be around their midfield because Sead Haksabanovic is one of the star names of this league. He's 21 now, ex-West Ham, of course. He was strongly linked with a move to New York Red Bulls, and I think there's a strong chance he won't see out the entire season there. I think he might be sold on. So does he stay? Does he not stay? If he doesn't, it's a big loss. I think he was the top assist provider in the league last season. And the other one, Steve, is Isak Bergman Johannesson. Now, we gave him a lot of airtime on the pod last season, and he this week has been linked with a move to Wolves. Wolves are actually in negotiations with their sporting director at Norrköping about signing him. If they lose him, it's a big blow because he's played a big part in their centre midfield in pre-season. It looks like Norling wants to play him in that sort of, two-man midfield, maybe almost a 3-4-3. And Bergman Johannesson is kind of the guy who would be in that midfield duo. So if he doesn't stay, then that would be a big loss in my opinion. He's a really, really top player. I really like him. He's turned 18 now, but I think he's top. He's going to probably play with Franston in that centre midfield. But they do have a young player called Johannes Kristin Bjarnason, who is his, I think they're cousins. So it's all a family affair in this league at the moment. And he's a 16-year-old who knows, he might be just as good. But yeah, and elsewhere, the other big name to talk about, by the way, just quickly, Samuel Adegbenro. He has moved from Norway to Sweden, and I'm very excited to see how he gets on the Nigerian in Allsvenskan. He'll be a big player for Norrköping, I think.
Yeah, well, we'll move on soon, but it just sounds to me like the problem here might be, you know, a lack of consistency with the squad. There might be some players moving on mid-season. There's a new style to get used to. There's quite a few ins and outs already. It just feels like a year of transition to me, but you think their ceiling could be higher than some might think?
I think it can be because they've still got Christopher Niemann as well. I like Ishak Abdul Razak, an 18-year-old who's looked okay in pre-season. So, you know, that will be probably Adegbenro, Niemann, Abdul Razak could be the front three. There's goals there if it is. Yeah, like I say, you know, in centre midfield, they've still got Jonathan Levi. Bergman Hannesson is very creative. Haksabanovic is very creative. So if Norling looks to sort of bring in a bit more defensive solidity and they've still got those attacking players, that they've got a lot of creativity in that side. A lot will depend on how well they get the balance right between defence and midfield, because I think in pre-season, for example, I saw them play Häcken in the Swedish Cup, and, you know, they played well in spells, but then at times the balance wasn't right. But, you know, in transitions and things like that, I think they did struggle in defensive transitions, for example, from attacking to defending. And I think, you know, defence has a lot to improve on. I think there's a few players there that could improve. There's a young player called Theodore Rask, who I think has maybe a bright future, 20-year-old. But yeah, I think all in all, Norrköping, it won't, you know, if you'd have asked me this before they got Norling, I would have said, you know, maybe 10th. You know, there was a period of time where it looked like the whole house was falling apart. But I think Norling coming in is just kind of like maybe the start of a new day for them. And that's why I've got them 5th.
So 5th place there. You've got Hammarby in 6th, another team from Stockholm, of course. Had a great year, 2019, 65 points. They scored goals for fun. The goals kind of dried up last year. They dropped well down to 8th place. But you see them kind of rebounding a little bit. Always a really tough side to work out for me. I can never seem to grasp Hammarby too much. But you see them down in 6th. What have they got going for them this year?
Well, they're in the Swedish Cup final, so congratulations to them. They beat Djurgården in the semi-final. It was delayed because of COVID. Hammarby had a bit of a breakout in the squad of COVID, so their games were delayed, but they managed to see off Trelleborg very, very narrowly. And then they've also beaten their big rivals, Djurgården, so they will meet Häcken in the cup final, which will be a great final, by the way. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be end-to-end stuff. You're right, very hard to predict. Every year there's big changes. I sometimes think when I look at Hammarby, I sometimes think their recruitment team maybe are a little bit hyperactive. You know, I think maybe they have a bit too much sugar in their diet, because it's almost like, you know, it's almost like they have too many jelly babies.
Too many Red Bulls.
Yeah, too many jelly babies, and every season there's just activity everywhere. Players coming in, players going. You remember, Steve, the player who Odilan Kosanu, who was there for about 5 games, I think, and left. There could be another case of that this season. They've got another player that we'll talk about in part 2, who could be similar at the back, who looks very, very promising. Yeah, always very active. The big name probably coming in is David Akam. You'll know him from MLS. He's
fast as anything. He's so quick.
Yeah, played for Nashville. He's on loan. Getting on a bit now. He's 30, but he's probably the sort of star name anyway. But there's a few others to look out for. Aymar Cher is a midfield player, 18, who people talk about. Darijan Bojanic is, you know, statistically one of the best passers in the league for many years now. This guy, will he stay? If he stays, then it's a great news for them. And the other big name, really, Astrid Selmani from Varbergs Boys. He's 24. He was one of the top scorers in the league, I think 4th top scorer. Big sort of reputation about him. He did really well at Varberg. And he chose Hammarby out of everyone. Malmö wanted him, but he chose Hammarby. 15 goals, 6 assists in 27 games. In the year before that, when they got promoted. And then this season as well, the season just gone, he was, you know, continued that sort of strong record. So, yeah, big things expected of him. Ludvigsson as well, very creative, joint sort of top assist provider in the league last season. And another name to look out for, Akun Kim Miamu. Now, he was in my 10 to watch last season, which is a real shame because he's I can't select him again, unfortunately. But he didn't play much last season, but this season he looks absolutely quality. When I say he looks Messi-esque, I know that is being a bit strong, but his sort of fleet of foot, his low center of gravity, his left-footed dribbling, cutting in onto his left foot and sort of scoring some quality goals, it is a little bit Messi-esque in that way. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not going to have the same career as Messi, but he looks really, really good in pre-season. So, yeah, 3 big forwards there to sort of play off. But I still think defensively, Stefan Billborn just doesn't have. They're always leaked too many goals for me, so that's always going to be their downfall. Yeah,
are they still this sort of free-scoring, attack-minded team then who really go for it? Hammarby, are you expecting that to continue?
In a word, yes. Billborn is an attacking manager,
yeah.
And I think that's going to continue. They've lost a few players at the back. The players they've brought in, the big name probably is John Goodney Fjolason. He was at Brann, and he's played 90 games in the past in Allsvenskan. They've got Mohamed Aziz Ouattara, who we'll talk about in part 2. Now, he's one I'm really excited to watch. But yeah, they will be an attacking team, Steve, and I think it'll always be over 2.5 probably with them.
This is kind of a general point, actually, that their home record completely collapsed last year compared to 2019. What's the situation with fans, do you think, for Allsvenskan this year? Are we in a situation where we really can't expect really anyone again throughout the whole year, do you think? And these clubs like Hammarby, the Stockholm clubs were really affected, in my opinion, by the lack of fans. Is that going to continue again?
There's been talks that they will have a pilot in April, maybe beginning of May. But there's a lot of kind of in Sweden, they obviously didn't have lockdowns, and that was quite famous, isn't it, around the world, really. They've been kind of pointed to them as a model. Didn't really work out in the end scientifically, but I won't get into the politics of all that. Compared to Norway, for example, they had way more cases, and it in the end, it kind of failed, really, that policy, to be honest. I think even the health minister admitted that it was a bit of a failure. But so basically what I'm trying to say is that there's still a big debate about it. They haven't really, I don't think they're really clear on their policies. They have announced some things. I've seen some things in the media, like they will try and, have pilots and things like that, but it's really up in the air, in my opinion. Hammarby, for example, had the COVID, they had to pause their cup games because of COVID. So it's still something that exists. It's still a problem. I think we could maybe expect to see fans in the second half of the season or as things go along, but it's very hard to predict at this moment in time. I would just be guessing if I gave anything.
It's very hard. It's very hard, isn't it? So anyway, you've got Hammarby. You're predicting them in 6th place. Seventh place, you are having IFK Göteborg, the defending Swedish Cup champions. Of course, they won't be for much longer, will they? But they did win the Swedish Cup last year. Have there been any interesting transfer dealings at IFK during the winter?
Well, I think you know the answer to that, Steve. So nicely set up there. Very nicely teed up. Yes. Well, where else to start but arguably the biggest transfer in Swedish football history, at least for the last decade, maybe 20 years. And that is the signing of Marek Hamsik. Now, I think I'm right in saying that, the sales of, season tickets and shirts and stuff at the IFK Göteborg club shops have multiplied tenfold pretty much since he joined. He is a veteran now, he's 33. But this is a huge signing. It made shockwaves around the world, really. People I saw who don't have any interest in Swedish football were sort of tweeting about it and getting really excited. Napoli legend, 500 plus games for Napoli, 121 goals, 100 assists, broke Maradona's record. So a real legend of Napoli football. And he has rocked up at IFK, which is, like I said at the time, it's quite incredible, really. And he's not the only one. It's almost like kind of like a veterans. It's almost like a veterans return sort of thing, like a veterans ball. They've brought a lot of big names. IFK. They're going to be bringing back quite a few players who are going to come in join at the end of the season, join in the middle of the season. Sorry, Marcus Berg is one of them. They've got Pontus Vlanblom who's come back. He came back in summer 2020. They brought Simon Tern. He's a big name. He was at Norrköping in the past. Used to play for Heerenveen. Sebastian Eriksson came back. He was sold to Genoa in January 2020. In August 2020, he was back. So that was another case of sort of, you're out and then you're back quite quickly. But they've got a lot of big names here. Jakob Johansson as well. He's back at IFK. He was at Rennes. So yeah, it's really like a veterans returning gig here. Everybody wants a piece of the pie, and there's still other talks. Oscar Wendt is apparently rumored to be coming back to Sweden. So yeah, it's really a lot going on at IFK, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like, if you like your sort of older boys, this is the team for you to support. This is not a club really at the minute. It seems like there's not as many youngsters around as perhaps they normally would be. But this is a club that's fallen on difficult times in recent years. Yes, they won the Swedish Cup last year, but in terms of the actual Allsvenskan league, they've had to deceive an awful lot, haven't they? And yeah, we in the second half of the episode, we're probably going to talk about Marek Hamsik a little bit more. But what are the tools of IFK Gothenburg got to work with here? They finished very disappointing position last year, didn't they? As low as 13th. You've got them in 7th, so you feel like they can get themselves comfortably back into the top half?
Yeah, I mean, people have sort of got carried away with Hamsik and said, oh, they're going to challenge for the title and all this sort of thing. And obviously, Marcus Berg and people like that, these are like big legends of Allsvenskan, to be honest, that they're bringing in. Pontus Wernbloom, these are big players. Swedish internationals, been there and done it, won things abroad. So I can understand why people are getting really excited, but if there's one thing I've learned with these sort of projects, Steve, in football, it's there's always takes time to gel, and sometimes these big names can always flatter to deceive. The thing that worries me a little bit with the IFK is, like, for the last few seasons, they've had a club direction of sort of trying to integrate young players. They had a whole new sort of revolutionary policy where they said that, we're going to integrate as many academy talents as we can, and that'll be our main focus. And they've almost brought in so many big names now. Hamsik 33, Wernbloom 34, Eriksson 32, Jakob Johansson 30. Tobias Sahn is now 31. Obviously, he's been there for a while. Kolbein Sigthorsson joins from IFK. He's 31. It's almost like, where are the young players now going to fit in? Because you've got players like August Erlingmark, Pekka Lagermyr, who's still only 24. They've brought Kevin Jakob in from Häcken, which is a big signing as well. I think he's only 20. But you've got those young players, and it's kind of like, well, where are they going to fit in now? So they've got a new manager, obviously. I know the manager left, and they've brought in Roland Nilsson, former Coventry player. He's won the league in the past with Malmö. And of course, he was Swedish under 21s coach for a time. He's a good manager, sort of a calming figure, maybe like a Roy Hodgson type figure, I think, if that makes sense. So it's a real change of direction quite quickly. And I think that's my question here. How is it all going to play out? And I don't think, in my experience, these things just immediately gel and they win the league. Hamsik's been injured for quite a lot in pre-season. So already, they haven't had that chance to really work with him properly. He's a doubt for the season opener. And, there's just so much recruitment going on here that, even Alassane Yusuf, now we've talked about him a lot in the past. I've written about him for Y-Scout. He's still only 20 years old. So where's he going to fit into this midfield? You've got Wernbloom, Hamsik, Eriksson, Jakob Johansson, Gustav Norlin they signed from Varberg Boys, August Erlingmark. All of them can play in the midfield. So where does that put someone like Yusuf? Does that mean they're going to sell him? Maybe they take the money and cash in. They've almost gone from a team with no money to suddenly just splashing out the cash. And it's been pretty good recruitment, I'll be honest. They haven't really, gone overboard. The Hamsik deal actually financially isn't too stretching for them. But it is a very rapid change of direction for them. And I think that's going to take some time to sort of play out.
Yeah.
But one thing for sure, Steve, watching Marek Hamsik in Allsvenskan is going to be a treat.
It's going to be a lot of fun, isn't it, for sure? So you've got them predicted 7th. In 8th, we've got AIK, who won the league back in 2018, of course. Feels like since then they've sort of been declining a little bit, maybe in the same sort of bracket as IFK Gothenburg, in that they're trying to rebound after a fairly poor season. I mean, just a brief look at their transfers here. It seems there's a lot more outs than ins, Jonathan. Are they kind of getting rid of some of the bad stuff?
Yeah, you've been quite kind there, really. I think, getting rid of some of the bad stuff indeed is maybe the way to say it. It's a lot of change there. Obviously, last season there was a disaster for them. They weren't. It feels strange to say it now, but they were near the relegation zone at one point in the season, and there was genuine thoughts that they could maybe go down which would have been unthinkable. And but it was realistic for a certain period of time, until they obviously changed the manager and changed their whole philosophy, and things kind of gradually picked up. Bartosz Grzelak came in and sort of steadied the ship. This season, it's a lot of changes, a lot of outs. If I'm looking at my spreadsheet, there's a lot of grey there, people moving on. One or two of them I'm not too sure about. Robin Teehee, who I thought was exceptional in the brief performances he had last season, the 19-year-old. He's been loaned out to AFC Eskilstuna, which is a shame because I really liked him as a centre-back. I was looking forward to watching him. They brought back Alexander Milosevic from Nottingham Forest. Of course, he played in the past and also played in Denmark. He won the league with Oiko. He's 29, so they're bringing back a bit of experience there. Eric Ortenio is now probably fit, hopefully, the left back, so he can come in maybe. They've got a few experienced names there, but yes, Seb Larsson's still going strong at 35. But people like Enoch Kofi-Adu have been allowed to leave. Heradi Rashidi's gone, and they've got young players like Tom Stranagar, Bilal Hussein, Zaka Latupa. But it's one of those squads where it's like a lot of experience and a lot of youth, and it's just how does that all blend together? I think the balance isn't quite there. One player I'm really excited about is Stefanelli. He's back. He's back, at Oiko again. I think he's got unfinished business. And they've also brought a young player called Bojan Radulovic up front. Now, he was at Brighton and Hove Albion, and he had a big reputation when he went to Brighton. On a free transfer, joined their under 23s, but he's never really made it in the first team, and he's come back to Sweden. He's come back. He's moved to Sweden now. Basically, he's a Serbian. So he's moved to Oiko, and he'll look to get some game time and start his career really. But I think I'm pretty comfortable having them where I have them. I think there's going to be a season of transition for Oiko.
Obviously, they've moved on from the Rickard Norling era now. What sort of side are they in terms of tactics and on the eye? Are they worth watching a little bit more for entertainment these days, Jonathan?
They're okay. Grzelak came in and they were a little bit more solid. He tried to Remember Norling got sacked because he was trying to bring in this whole new game model. He was trying to go for this sort of really fast-paced kind of Klopp style, entertaining brand of football. He wanted to revolutionise the team from that sort of boring reputation that he had, and it went really badly wrong, didn't it? There was one game where they got beaten, I think 4-1 by Norrköping. They got absolutely ripped apart, and it kind of went downhill from there really. And they lost confidence. The young players lost confidence, and the whole project fell apart. Grzelak came in, he went back to a more sort of stable formation, a bit more of a traditional lineup. He brought in a few players of his own that he could, rely on. Filip Rogic came in for one. He had a decent half season, sort of steadied the ship. They brought in Sotiris Papagiannopoulos as well from Östersunds. He used to play for Östersunds, of course, won the cup there with Östersunds. So they brought in one or two names just to sort of tidy things up a bit. They brought Mikael Lustig as well, the Celtic veteran. So I think they'll continue along those lines. I don't think they'll try anything too extraordinary. I think they'll try and just be solid. But I think they're a team in transition, in my opinion. They've got a lot of young talent to come through, but it's like who does he trust and who doesn't he trust? And we'll see how that goes as the season plays out.
Yeah, eighth place predicted finish from for you there from for IK. That's it. That's the halfway section of this podcast. It's been an epic one so far, hasn't it? It really has. I think we've done those top 8 sides in the prediction. There's plenty of justice here. But yeah, do join us after the break where we're going to be talking about the teams that Jonathan's predicting in the bottom half of the table and also his 10 to watch. So we'll catch you again very soon. Welcome back to the Nordic Football Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss. I'm with Jonathan Fadugba. This is the Swedish Allsvenskan season preview. Before we move and talk about the teams in the bottom half and also Jonathan's 10 to watch, just want to talk about something that we're going to be doing on Twitter soon. It's a little competition we've got going with team logos in the Allsvenskan. I was messing around with a bit of artwork, and Jonathan was like, there's some nice logos in this league. I wonder which is the best one. So we're going to have a sort of a knockout competition where teams are against each other in terms of their logos, and you guys are going to vote on Twitter, and we're going to end up with the best logo in the Allsvenskan. So it'd be interesting to see which team wins that one? Have you got an early favourite, Jonathan?
Good question. I'm not sure. I have to think about that, but I'm going to just say Kalmar. I quite like the red and white. So,
if in doubt, go Kalmar. So yeah, keep your eye on the Twitter for that. It's going to be a very interesting little competition going on. So let's put back to this Allsvenskan season preview then. In just going on the mid-table teams now, 9th to 12th. Go us through what teams you've got in those positions predicted.
Okay, so we've got a top 8. Obviously, Malmö, Häcken, Djurgården, Elfsborg, Norrköping, Hammarby, IFK Göteborg. 9th, I'm going for Kalmar. So maybe it's just because I had them in my mind that I picked them there. So 9th, I've got Kalmar. 10th, I've got Örebro. 11th, I've got IFK Sirius. And 12th, I've got Varbergs boys.
Yeah, and there's a few teams there. We've actually had interviews with managers and players at Örebro, Sirius. So check back on sort of our past episode there. Now, this mid-table battle, you got Varbergs down in 12th this year. They actually came up, didn't they, in the previous campaign? They did all right. They did all right about themselves. At one point, I was very worried about them, wasn't I, if you remember correctly? But, you think they were 11th last year. You think they can keep their head above water? Just briefly, Varbergs, what's to like about them?
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where the media have actually predicted them to be relegated. So I'm a bit out of a bit out of sync there. I'm going for them to be a little bit higher. I could be wrong, so I think by no means will I be correct. But there's been a lot of upheaval in this squad, big squad upheaval. Key players are leaving. Gustav Norlin had a really good season, and he's gone to IFK. He's one of those players I mentioned amongst the many names there. They lost Selmani as well. Obviously, I mentioned he's gone to Hammarby. I liked Jonas Barney. I thought he was a little bit undervalued there, and he's gone to Cyprus. He's getting on a bit now, but I thought they could have maybe tried and retained him. So a lot is going to depend on how the replacements adapt. They've had a lot of players come in, a lot of replacements. They've got players like Simovic who could come in, and I think it will depend how they adapt. But two things with Varbergs, they've always got some quite good young talents. Last season they kind of were written off again last season, and actually a lot of the young players showed themselves and did well. And the other area that just makes me think that they might have something about them is the manager. I do quite like Joachim Persson. Now, I don't know if it's just because he looks exactly like Jurgen Klopp. I mean, exactly like him. Spitting image, doesn't have anything on these two. But he's an intriguing manager for me. And I think they've got some interesting recruitment strategies. And so I'm sort of giving them the benefit of the doubt in terms of their recruitment. There's a lot of players I don't know much about. Like I say, Robin Simovic joins from Odd. You might know about him, Steve. He's supposed to be the big name.
Big lad.
Silmani replacement. 78 goals in 187 games. He's also played in Japan mainly. They've got a player from Canada, Simon Carlson and Jay. So I'll be honest, I'm probably the more I talk about this squad, I might actually start rethinking these things. But I'll list off a few reasons, a few players that I think could be important for them. I think John Berkveld, Joachim Lindner will be important at the back. I think I do like Albin Moorfelt. I think he's got a bit of a reputation about him, meant to be highly rated. He could break through the season in midfield. Keenan Ayer, I think he's a decent player, had a decent season. And Adama Fofana, now he was linked with a move to Norrköping. The left midfielder also plays left back. I really liked him, and he turned down Norrköping actually, couldn't agree terms. So he's a decent player. So like I say, I'm leaning towards just the fact that they have been quite good in their recruitment in the last few years. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and you've got Sirius down there predicted in 11th, and they're a funny team, aren't they? Every year they have periods where you kind of think they're going to be in trouble, and then they always have like these kind of crazily good periods where they string together like 3 wins in 5 or something, or 4 wins in 6, and it's enough to always keep them afloat. You predict them 11th this year. It's similar-ish to the media, maybe a little bit better. You see them kind of staying very similar to where they were.
Yeah, it'll be a completely new look side. They've lost their big manager, Henrik Rydström. He did fantastically well, and he's left. If you remember rightly, Steve, we had their sort of star forward, Mohamed Said, on the podcast last season. You can go back on iTunes and listen to that. And as soon as we had him on the show, they tanked. I mean, they talked about Europe in that. We talked about Europe in that podcast, and they fell all the way down to 10th, which was really quite. Now, when I look at the table, I was like, really? They finished 10th? Bit of a shock. It kind of almost underachieved considering how good they were. They were really nice to watch and a nice blend of football, and it all kind of fell apart. They've lost some key players this year. They've lost Vecchia. Ekdal has gone to, obviously, as I mentioned, he's gone to Djurgården, who I think they'll miss. Elias Anderson as well. But they have got some interesting new signings. So I think the media's got them kind of a bit lower. I'm happy to have them where I've got them. I think, I don't think they'll pull up too many trees. So I think 11th is about right. Last season 10th. Like I say, I think that is partly just because they've lost some players that I think they'll miss. And they've also got a new manager who doesn't have much of a track record, Daniel Backstrom. Now, I don't know much about him, if I'm honest. I know that he's sort of come in. He's been assistant manager at Malmö and that kind of thing. He's been Örebro and that kind of stuff. So I don't think he's got a huge managerial track record in his own right. And that's always a bit of a risk. So, but he's meant to be highly rated. People talk I think he was very sort of hotly mentioned, as a sort of outcoming coach. So we'll see. One or two players to look out for. I think Christian Kouakou will be an important player. They brought him in from IFK Göteborg. Ekin Bulut has come from the 3rd division. He's got a good track record the last 2 seasons at Östersunds, who have produced a lot of players who are in Allsvenskan this season, by the way. Marcus Mathisen comes in from Falkenberg. I thought he was a really good player. Too good for Falkenberg, in my opinion. They've got relegated. They've picked him up on a free, and I think that's a good signing. They've got one or two others. They've signed one of Degerfors players, Jacob Ortmark, who did quite well. So, yeah, I think, at the back as well, it's going to be very important. They've got 2 new players at the back. Patrick Enwadike joins from Varbergs Boys. He had a good season, helped them get promoted, and now he's moved up 2 divisions. And Joseph Colley. Now, Colley is an interesting one because he was at Chelsea's academy, but he's actually never played a game of senior football, Steve. He's 21 years old, been at Chelsea academy, been at Kievo, and has never actually played a senior league match. He's played in the EFL Trophy. He was at Bromma Boykin again, moved to Chelsea's academy, and has just never come through. So this is going to be, although he's got a big reputation, this is actually going to be his first ever proper season. So we'll see how he gets on. They've still got Bjorkstrom and Carl Larsson at the back. And they've also signed David Mitov Nielsen, former Norrköping goalkeeper who has a big reputation. So he'll compete for the sort of goalkeeper slot. So really, they've got 1 or 2 players that I like I say, Mathisen. Bulut, I think, could have a good season. They've still got Yukiya Sugita, who did so well last year. But all in all, it's a bit of a question mark there. So that's why I've got them where they are.
Mitov Nielsen actually impressed me at Sarpsborg last year. He's especially good in one-on-one duels as a goalkeeper. So he's one to watch out for, I'd say there. 10th place, you've predicted Örebro. Now, there's actually a player we're going to talk about later on from them in the 10 to watch. But, they were very respectable last season, weren't they? 7th place. You're having them dropping down a little bit, but perhaps understandable with some bigger teams likely to overtake them. Should be set for a fairly comfortable mid-season campaign for Örebro.
Yeah, I think they almost. I think in some of the season previews I saw they were described as boring. You almost know what you're going to get with them. I think I predicted them 9th last season as well. So I always sort of have them around there. They tend to do slightly better than I think they'll do, but it won't be too much excitement. We've had Axel Kjell on the podcast before, and he sort of talked about how the budget means they can't do too much. They have to be very creative. They have to sort of pick up players who are young and then try and sell them on. Balance the books. They've had some problems, I think, financially this season in particular, trying to sort of balance things up. So last season they finished 7th. They could easily finish 7th again. Maybe they're always around that sort of 7th to 10th. I've gone for 10th just because I think some of their players aren't great. That they've signed. I don't think they've really. There's no one I've really. Nothing really stands out to me. I'd say probably they haven't lost many key players. Elsker Jansen has gone, and they've brought in a young player called. They've sort of really brought in a player who used to play in France, called Bobby Alain. Don't know if you know him. He played in Nancy, I think, as well. But they've brought in 1 or 2 players who will probably steady the ship, experienced names. Kevin Walker comes in from Djurgården, and also Dennis Hummert. I think this could be a year for Dennis Hummert to really break through. He was loaned to them last season, scored a hat-trick on his first game against Norrköping. And I think this could be the year for him, really. He's 24 now, and this could be the year that he really kicks on and makes a real name for himself, because I've always thought he had a little bit about him. So Hummert will probably be competing up front. They've also brought in Rasmus Karjalainen. I'm not massively. I'm a big fan of Eric Bjorndal. He didn't do well last season. 3 goals in 28 games. It was poor for him. So I'm not sure they have the top striker. So a lot will depend on Hummert. Walker will provide some solidity. Jake Larsson's got a lot to prove. He was in our 10 to watch last year, I believe, and really went off the boil. He scored 2 goals and 1 assist in 22 games. Before that, he'd been linked with Genoa, and we had Axel Kjell on the podcast talking about his mentality and what a good player he thought he was. But he'll need to sort of step up again. But the problem with them, Steve, they've lost Nahir Basara, who was really, really, really important for them. Huge player for them last season. He's always been good for them, and he's gone to, I think, Saudi Arabia. Romain Gaull's come in, so he's sort of out of favour at Malmö, so maybe he can do something. They've got Alfred Ajdarevic. They've brought in a young player called Taha Abdi Ali, who is meant to be very exciting. Axel Kjell says he's got really exciting offensive qualities. He's scored 10 goals and 5 assists in 29 games for Sollentuna in, again, the 3rd division. A lot of 3rd division recruitment here, isn't there, Steve? And then one young player to watch out for is Dennis Kollander, who's an 18-year-old centre mid who was meant to be very highly rated. But all in all, I think, I've got Örebro in 10th. It could easily be anywhere between 7th and 10th, in my opinion. And
as Jonathan mentioned there, we did have Axel Kjell on the podcast for an interview before. Go and search back on our archives, and it was a good listen. So, I was not surprised by the 3 teams you just talked about there in terms of predictions, but I certainly did raise an eyebrow seeing that you predicted Kalmar in 9th. This is a team that has, in the last few years, always been hovering around relegation. 14th spot always seems to be theirs, doesn't it? They own that sort of playoff position before then, just a little bit before. You see them jumping up into 9th spot. Now, what makes you believe that they can really snap out of their funk this season?
Yeah, and I could be very wrong here, to be honest. Firstly, shout out to Wasson, one of our top sort of celebrity Kalmar fans. We've had him on, he's always been a really great contributor. So if you're listening to this, Mr. Wasson, it's great to sort of have you again for another year. So I'm interested to hear what you think about our prediction. Last season 14th, media prediction 14th. So everyone thinks they're going to be in the relegation playoff. But I've got them higher this season, and I'm going to explain why, Steve. First thing to note is they've had a huge player turnover in the last year. 18 players have left and 20 players have come in. Always big turnover at Kalmar. But this time, instead of their random Brazilians and just very odd transfers where I have no clue what on earth they're doing, I actually think that they've made 1 or 2 smart moves this year. And with some experienced names that have come in. And their recruitment is maybe just showing signs of moving in the right direction. Now they've got, I think it's Petter Swad who's come in and he's doing some recruitment for them. Now that might explain some of the sort of changes they've made, because there are 1 or 2 names here that I think could do all right. They've brought Lars Satcher in. I don't know much about him. He was at Tromsø, so you may know about him. He's played 48 games for Hammarby. He's a centre back. Lucas Rosa is a young player who's come from the 3rd division again. Rasmus Sjosted was in Israel, and he's also returned to Kalmar. He was there as a youngster. He's 29. But really, some of the signings that I quite like. Jonathan Ring comes in. Now he used to be at Kalmar, but he was obviously at Djurgården, and I think at 29 years old, that's a good move for him. I think he's still got a bit to offer, but maybe not quite at Djurgården level anymore. So I think that's a smart pickup. Obviously, they've lost Svante Ingelsson, who was a really good player. But there's 1 or 2 names here that I think Zach Makidis was quite decent last season in spells. Piotr Johansson was okay. Oliver Berger's come in. Now he's 27-year-old centre midfielder. He played for Odd, and he also played for GIF Sundsvall. Now he got 9 goals, 6 assists in 30 games last season in the Superettan, and now he's moved to Kalmar, which I think is potentially an interesting move. Again, he's a bit more experienced, 27, and then. The real big reason that I've got them a bit higher, Steve, is the manager. It's the return of Henrik Rydström, club legend. He's back from Sirius, of course, where he moved, and he spent, I think, 30 years roughly at the club. It was always going to happen. He was always going to end up at Kalmar as manager, to be honest. And once it was announced that he was not going to renew his contract at Sirius, you kind of knew where he was probably going to end up. He's moved to Kalmar, and so I get the feeling we could be looking at a new Kalmar this season. Rydström really created a reputation for himself last season with his really sort of attractive 4-3-3 style of football at Sirius, really sort of fluid play. playing through the lines, through the thirds, fluid sort of style of play on the ball, building from the back, nice sort of passing defenders, and the forward line, they had a nice forward three who were very interchangeable, really played some good stuff at Sirius, and I think he'll try and integrate that now at Kalmar, and I think he's a decent manager actually, so I just feel that the Rydström effect potentially is what's going to lift them a little bit higher, so that's why I've got them higher. There will be question marks about whether the squad is good enough, but there's one or two other players that I quite like. Now, I mentioned Noah Shamoun. They've signed him from Asiriska in the third tier again. He turned down Parma in Serie A. Now, he's meant to be very, very exciting. Jürgen Pettersson, their sports director, said he's a very exciting young player. He was very good 1v1. Isaac Janssen, he was one of my 10 to watch last season, didn't really do much, to be honest, to justify that. But he, at 19 years old now, he's got another year of experience. So I think he trained at Spurs when he was young in 2017. And he's highly rated, so that's another year of his development. So all in all, I mean, they've only got, I think, one Brazilian now, Steve, which is Romario. So it's goodbye to sort of Jar Jar and Rafinha and, Hiago and all the others of the past, which is maybe a little bit sad. No more Nixons and stuff like that. But the other player they've still got is Niels Froling up front, who's, he turned down Norrköping as well, and he's been linked with AZ Alkmaar in the past. So I think there's one or two exciting signs there for Kalmar, and maybe they can expect a slightly better season than in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like the penny's probably finally dropped. I mean, these clubs that have enough warning signs that they're going to eventually go, they either eventually go down or something kind of kicks them into action and they do improve. And it sounds like maybe the latter there has happened with Kalmar, and you see them comfortably there in ninth place. You don't personally see them in this relegation battle. We are going to talk now about the relegation battle and your predicted positions. I'll go through them now at the bottom. There you go. Östersunds in 13th.
Let's not name the two relegated, or maybe it actually will be obvious, won't it?
Yeah, Hamstad 14th, Mjällby 15th, Degerfors 16th. I'm going to come back to Östersunds later because it seems the media are writing them off completely. You're not. I'm going to be interested to find out why. We'll come to them later. The one that does interest me is Mjällby. You have them in 15th. Now, you were full of praise for Mjällby last season a lot. I do know that, and they probably overachieved in 5th, but this is a significant drop down. I like that you're putting your neck on the line here, Jonathan, perhaps against the grain. But I'm very interested to hear what you think the problems are going to be for Mjällby this season. Yeah,
we've always been sort of straight down the line, man, haven't you? Not one for suspense, just get it in the mix.
I know. Yeah.
Announce it all straight away, which is fair enough. So, that's fair enough. Straight in there. Mjällby, yes, I think their recruitment has been very strange. Number one, I'm not a big fan of some of the players that I see there. I don't see big names. I could be wrong, but I don't see many players that I know or really think have too much pedigree. Again, like I said, could be completely wrong. Big change of manager. Marcus Lantz refused to renew his contract. He did incredibly well last season. Getting to be honest, I have to almost rub my eyes and look at the screen again to see that they finished 5th. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
nice for them to finish 5th in their first season. We all talked about Sirius, but really Mjällby were the stars at the end of the day. Finishing above Norrköping, finishing above OIK, Hammarby, IFK, sorry. That's exceptional, really. And Lance, I'm surprised he's not got another job. I don't know why he's not been picked up by someone else in this league, but he's just kicking his heels. I don't know why he didn't renew his deal. They wanted to go in different directions. I think there was a rumor that Lance wasn't happy with the potential recruitment at Mjällby, so maybe that plays into what they've done in the window. And again, like I say, I could be wrong, but media's predicted them 10th. But I just look at the other teams, and I think when you get newly promoted sides, they have a bit of a newly promoted bounce, maybe, which is why I've got Halmstad just about getting their neck out of it. Degerfors could do much better than I've predicted. I'm a little bit unsure about Degerfors, but I just think they've got quite a weak squad. But really, with Mjällby, it's just the new manager, Christian, I don't know much about. Again, he's sort of been an assistant manager and that kind of thing. So he could come in and be a superstar and sort of I could be, eating humble pie. He's 38 years old. He's played for Malmö and Helsingborg as a player. Again, he was wanted by Malmö as an assistant, and he's supposedly highly rated. But Lance did so well, Steve, that it's just I see a big drop.
Do you see this sort of like a Sheffield United syndrome this year, second season syndrome? I see one big problem already, Moses Ogbu. scored 14 goals for them last season. He's moved on to China. Can they find someone to replicate them goals?
Well, exactly. That's the first question. I think they do have goals in them in Jacob Bergstrom. Now, he's a player I like. He was in my fantasy team for a while. Didn't do too much, but he's a player at 25. I think he's probably one of the strongest players in the league. I mean, he's like an ox, to be honest. Really sort of strong target man type player. I think he's a player who I could see going on, actually. I could see him getting picked up in the end by like a Hammarby or an IFK or someone like that in the future, or IFK maybe, because he's a good target man. He's a good in the air, strong player. He does get goals. So I do think they have potentially a striker who can do something, but he's not massively prolific. He's more of he's more sort of a hold-up player who people play off. There's going to be a lot of people relying on him. They've brought in Enoch Kofi-Adu from Oyikor, but I'll be honest, Steve, in the games I saw last season from Enoch Kofi-Adu, he's a legendary player. He's won the league. He's done really, really well in his career, but he was shocking. And I wasn't surprised that Oyikor let him go, to be honest. And I think at 30, he will bring valuable experience, but sometimes I wonder about those sort of players. Are they on their way down? And, he'll have a bit to prove, in my opinion. And elsewhere, just look at the recruitment. You mentioned they've lost Ogbu, they've lost David Batanero, they've lost Bersad Savovic, who was really good, I thought. He's gone to Turkey for about 200k. So they've lost a lot of players that I looked at and thought they're decent. They lost Tamimi Seiberg, who's moved to Gifsons. He wasn't necessarily great, but Mohamed Jaiz, who's gone to Hammarby. The left back, Victor Gardias, has gone to Norrköping. So if you look at this, there's a trend here, isn't there, Steve? Players getting plucked by others. Jesper Lofgren's gone to Djurgården. So, you're looking at it and half the best players have gone. Now, when you look at who they've replaced them with, I just see, players coming in from Slovenia. Josip Filipovic, I don't know much about. Dan Klinkenberg, played at Arlesen. You may know him, Dutch second division. And, Ivan Kričak, I don't know much about again. He's been talked up by their sports director, but is he good enough? Time will tell. I just look at the squad and I'm like, question marks, manager, question marks. So, yeah, it's a bit of a bold call. I often sit on the fence, but I'm gonna go for it.
I like it. I feel that you're a lot more decisive in the season preview this year, actually. I'll give you a lot of credit here. And another area here, we'll talk about the newly promoted teams at the end. But Östersund, it seems like the media are giving them absolutely zero hope of staying up. But you have them in 13th. The chat is certainly giving them a lot more chance of doing well than most people. What do you see in the Östersund squad that gives them a chance of staying alive?
Well, the headline act, if you had to sum up Östersunds in one word in the last 2 years, it's just chaos. Total chaos. I mean, where do you begin? You've had transfer bans, you've had manager changes, you've had sort of just court cases, you've had financial, upheaval. You've even had this season, in pre-season, Steve. There was a report that came out about, this just sums up Östersunds really in the last sort of 2 years. A report came out that basically the club had lost loads of money because one of the directors had put their club money into some cryptocurrency and put it into some random cryptocurrency that they couldn't get the money out. This cryptocurrency that I guess they expected it to fly and it didn't do anything, and that it was basically a scam. That was a report that came out, and that was club money apparently. So, I mean, they were all over the place. I don't know if the report was corroborated, but it did break, and it just sums up the just random weird stuff going on at that club. So the financial things, they've become like AFC Eskilstuna really to Swedish fans. There's a lot of hatred for Östersunds now. These little things like that, these little schemes, people feel that Östersunds have been quite dishonest with their funding and their money and stuff, and obviously the court case and the chairman sort of facing jail time and all that kind of stuff has led to this feeling in Sweden like they want Östersunds down, like everybody wants them relegated, to be honest, which is a shame really when you look at how it sort of started with Graham Potter doing so well. But there's a real dislike for Östersunds now. I'll be honest, they're not well liked. But actually, when I look at it, they're predicted bottom by the media. But I've got one or two reasons that I think they might surprise one or two people. Now, they've got the reason that they've been predicted bottom is they have a transfer ban, Steve. They can't sign any players till 2022. No loans, no nothing. So they're really, really up against it. They're going to need to have no injuries. They're going to need every player to be flying to have any real chance. And that could obviously go against them. And if it goes against them, then, my prediction could well be wrong. But I've got them where I have them, in sort of 13. I've got them where I've got them in 13th because I do actually think they've got a decent squad. Now, I know they've lost a lot of players, and the real one worry is if they get an injury to Ali Kaita, or because they don't have many goalkeepers. They've only got 2 keepers, and obviously with no one, they're not allowed to bring anyone in. Any kind of injury there, and they're in trouble. But they do still have some decent players, like I say. Sonko Sundberg's still there, who I quite like. Eric Haugen gets better and better. Patrick Capozzo isn't too bad. He's back. In pre-season they've been playing sort of a 3-5-2. Now they have had some bad results in pre-season, but I still like Charlie Colkett, former Chelsea. Now if he sticks around, they've got a really good midfielder there. Frank Arhin's done quite well in centre midfield in pre-season. He could do okay. A lot of the reasons that the people think they're going to do terribly is because they just haven't been able to buy anyone. So everyone's just thinking, well, that's naturally what's going to happen. But if you look at the strikers, it's going to be England or bust here, because they've got Francis Juno Baptiste, they've got Blair Turgott, and they've got Jarrell Sellers, all English. And really, if they're going to stay up, they're going to need those 3 to score goals. They're going to need some serious contributions from those guys, because if they don't, then they are going to be toast. It's a really light squad, really small squad. But one of the reasons I just want to say, Steve, quickly. So I don't think their squad is that bad. They've got Allsvenskan experience. They are going to be up against it, but that could create a siege mentality. There's no fans, so it's kind of that part of it. They don't have to worry about at this moment in time. No one's going to be booing them every game. They're not going to be getting on their back, so they don't have to think about that. The whole court case thing is in the background, but they've had that for a while now, so they're kind of probably used to that. I just want to point to one thing. Obviously, Ian Birchnell left last July. They brought in Amir Asrafshan, and there was a lot of talk about him. He didn't have his badges, and people thought that would be the end of them. They'd go down. But actually, Steve, Asrafshan's points per game since he joined Östersunds is actually better than Ian Birchnell. He's got 1.28 points per game to Ian Birchnell's 1.22. In fairness to Asrafshan, he turned things around a little bit there, and they didn't have too bad of a second half of the season. I thought they might even get relegated last year. I thought they would just tank. It didn't happen. He kept things afloat. Blair Turgott came in and started doing quite well. He did manage to get some goals out of the players, and they managed to sort of stay up fairly comfortably. So I think that they might do the same thing again this season. And I could be wrong. Like I say, any kind of injury crisis, and they are in serious trouble. But I've just got a little feeling they may surprise 1 or 2 this season.
Yeah, they did lose the last 6 games of last season, but the job had been done, hadn't it? They survived, so you can always let them off the hook a little bit. Pre-season, there's been a lot of defeats, but they faced some good teams like Lokomotiv Moscow twice, Rostov, Djurgården. These are no gimme matches, and they didn't have a bad run in the Swedish Cup, to be fair. So, you've actually convinced me that they can certainly give themselves a chance of survival, Jonathan. You make a very good case for them indeed. Now, we've got 2 newly promoted sides in the league this year. Helsingborg, Falkenberg, they've gone down, and coming back, Halmstad and Degerfors. Now, I know quite a little bit about Halmstad. They've been in this league before numerous times. Degerfors, I can't personally remember them being in Allsvenskan. I'm sure they have. So I'm interested to hear about these 2 sides. You've got Degerfors predicted bottom. You've got Halmstad at 14th. I don't mind which one you choose here to talk about first, but let's hear about these newly promoted teams.
Well, I'll start with Degerfors, and to be honest, they're the one team where I feel like my prediction is a bit harsh. I had to predict someone to be bottom, and I kind of, in a way, I'm like, well, flip a coin, to be honest, and I think they could easily just get out of it. Degerfors have quite a proud history in Allsvenskan. To be honest, they haven't been in it for quite a long time. They've been out of it for many years. In fact, I think since 1997 was the last time they were in Allsvenskan. I may be wrong, but I think that's right. But they are a club that sort of is well considered. It's a shame there's no fans, because they do have a relatively okay fan base and that kind of thing. They do have they're not kind of a new club like, I say, a Dalkurd or someone like that who's come up in recent seasons. Like an AFC Eskilstuna or a even an Östersunds, in that sense, that they're a bit more historic than that. Sven-Göran Eriksson was a manager there back in the 70s. So that just sums up kind of a bit of their history. But yes, they're runners-up. They've been runners-up a few times. They haven't really done much. They've won the Swedish Cup in 1993. So that tells you a little bit about their sort of recent history. But I just look at this squad, Stephen. I struggle to really see, Halmstad won the league. Degerfors finished second. It was a 5-point gap. Degerfors, I did watch them in 1 or 2 games in the Super Wrestling last season, and they were really exciting, actually. I thought they were a good team to watch. But I just, they conceded 30 goals last season, won a game in Super Wrestling level. They scored 64, which was the best in the league. So they were decent going forward. But I just think their squad is quite weak. And when I analyse it against all the other squads, the lack of experience that they have, and also the players they've brought in some players, but they're kind of players, like I say, it's a bit like I mentioned with Enoch Kofi Adu. Are these players on their way down? So I'll just go through 1 or 2 of the names that they brought in. Sargon Abraham, who was at IFK in the past. He's 30 years old. He'll probably be relied on for goals. I'm not sure about him. Johan Bertilsson, he's there. He's a veteran now, 33. If you look at some of the names like Jonathan Seiberg's come from Mjällby, he's not really kicked on. He was actually in my tend to watch about 3 or 4 years ago at GIF, and his career's just not really kicked on. So I think he's got a lot to prove. They've got a player called Adavan Rajamahan, who I think could do quite well. He was okay at Acropolis, but he's 28. So I'm just looking around at the squad, and they've got Ferhat Ayez, who used to be at Örebro. He gets another chance at this level, but it's really kind of quite a small squad with a lot to prove. A lot of players who don't have experience at this level. At the back, they've got Oliver Ekroth, never played in Allsvenskan. They've got Sebastian Olsen, I think he played 7 games in Allsvenskan, roughly, something like that. A lot of players with no real experience. Sean Sabetkar come in. He's played 50 games in Super Etten, 50 games in the third tier, but again, never played in Allsvenskan. Although he did quite well in pre-season. Funnily enough, Stevie, he signs from Västerås, and a few days before he joined Degerfors, he knocked Degerfors out of the Swedish Cup. So that's a bit of a warm introduction by knocking the team that he's joining out of the cup. He scored a goal in the game there. But yeah, all in all, to me, it's almost like they're the weakest squad on paper, and I'm just going on paper really in that sense.
Yeah,
manager. I can talk about the manager in a second if you like. Yeah.
Just having a look at some of their players, and there's some really good stats from last year. Johan Bertilsson, 19 goals, 8 assists last year. Victor Edvarsen, 16 goals, 9 assists. William Dahlstrom, 10 goals, 10 assists. They've lost Axel Lindahl, who's actually moved to Buda Glimt. He had 10 assists. But I mean, the thing is, though, there is a big difference between Super Etten and Allsvenskan, isn't there, at times? Like, there is some teams you can really bash up down there. So that is a concern, whether you can step up at Allsvenskan level, really.
Yeah, 100%. And if you look at, I mentioned when we talked about Örebro, Eric Bjorndal is a good case because he was at Degerfors. He got 20 goals in 28 games for Degerfors the year before that. Went to Allsvenskan and got 3 goals in 28 games. So that tells you a bit about the levels, and it is a different level. And Bjorndal was like their key man, really. And as you said, they've lost 1 or 2 as well. I just think they're quite a weak squad on paper. The manager's come in. He's a young manager. He's done really well, to be fair to him. He's a one-club man. Tobias Solberg, 39 years old. He's been a sort of a 3-4-2 man. He's been there for 2 years and got them promoted. So he's done his job. And fair play to him. Maybe he's going to sort of pull out a rabbit out of the hat here. But I just generally think they've got quite a weak squad. Even the new players they've signed, Nicholas Maripu, for example, he's only played 16 games in Allsvenskan. Formerly of Acropolis, AFC Eskilstuna. Christos Gravius, he's been at OIK, but he's only played 19 games in Allsvenskan. So this is a squad with a lot to prove, really. A lot of players who have been written off in the past, maybe not got chances that they maybe felt they deserved. And this is going to be their chance now, basically, to, and that could go one of 2 ways. Sometimes it goes the other way. You get a band of brothers, they say to themselves, we're going to prove everyone wrong, and they go on a good run. But I just think the squad's a little bit weak. I think it's weaker than Halmstads. I think it's weaker than, say, Varbergs. I think it's slightly weaker, arguably, than Östersunds. So that's why I've got them where I've got them.
So Halmstad, then, they actually won the Super Etten last year, 68 points on the board. Tell us a bit more about them. You say they got look a little bit better than Degerfors. What's their main strength?
I think the main strength is up front. I think they've got more experienced players, but they're better players. Marcos Andersson, we spoke about Malmö. He's a good player. I think he will add a bit of goal scoring quality up front. So I think that's a better signing than anything I see at Degerfors, for example. Could be proven wrong, but again, that's how I see it. Mikael Bowman, he used to play at IFK Göteborg. He's 32. He scored goals last season, and he's got that experience as well. So I think up front they've got a little bit more about them. They've got Sadat Karim, Alexander Johansson. Maybe they could maybe do something, but I'm not sure. In midfield, I think they've got more about them as well. So there's a player I know I like called Samuel Kroon. He's a right midfielder, right winger. He's a good player. Emil Wickstrom is meant to be quite highly rated. Halmstad always bring through some decent young players, by the way. Haksabanovic, of course, came from Halmstad's academy. From that point of view, I think they've got just a little bit better quality. And also at the back, they had two brilliant players last season, Andreas Johansson, the veteran, and Joseph Baffo. Now, those two at centre-back will be absolutely crucial to them if they're going to stay up. And, I just think that, I could be wrong, but I just think they've got a slightly stronger squad all round. So, yeah, that's why I've got them where I've got them. And I think Amir Al Amari is one to look out for. He did quite well last season. He's been at Bromby in the past. So I just see a slightly bit more quality there, especially with Antonsson. I think he can lead the line and be a real leader for them on loan from Malmö. So that's why I have them where I have them.
They've got a staggering defensive record, actually, especially away from home. They had by far the best away record in the Super Ettan last year. Won 10 out of 15 games, 4 draws, 1 loss. Conceded only 8 goals away from home. It looked like really the main reason they actually won that league was such a solid defence. I guess, again, it's a similar question to Degerfors in terms of their offence, but can the Halmstad defence make that step up to Allsvenskan and be solid up there? I am always concerned myself when a side relying on defence gets promoted because it's hard to sort of replicate it at the next level.
Yeah, and I think also Magnus Haglund is a decent manager. He's got a little bit more experience. There's a few managers here that have been assistants, as I mentioned, at Mjällby, for example, and elsewhere. Whereas, Haglund has been around the block and done it. He's won the league, for example. So, he was at Elfsborg in 2006 when they won the title. And yeah, so, he's got that experience. He's been at Lillestrøm as well. He's been at Elfsborg for 2 spells. He's got a decent, record all round, all things considered. So he will know how to get a tune out of a squad. So I think they will need goals, and Sadat Karim will have a lot of responsibility, as will Bowman, as well, and Thompson. But I just think Haglund brings that bit more experience. So I think they will just about have a bit more about them to try and get out of it.
There you have it then. That is the pre-season Jonathan Fadugba Allsvenskan table. Let's just go through it. You are predicting Malmö to win the league. Häcken in second. Djurgården in third. Elfsborg in fourth. Norrköping fifth. Hammarby sixth. IFK Göteborg in seventh. AIK in eighth. And in the bottom half of the table, Kalmar ninth. Örebro 10th. Sirius 11th. Varbergs 12th. Östersunds just avoiding the drop, according to the JF, in 13th. Halmstad 14th will make the playoff. Mjällby to go have the second season syndrome and go down in 15th. And Degerfors, rock bottom of the table. Jonathan, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for those excellent analysis of these teams. And I think we're just going to have a little break right now. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about your 10 players to watch. Always a very exciting time. So do join us after the break for the final section. Welcome back to part 3 of the Nordic Football Podcast Swedish Allsvenskan season preview. This has been an epically long season preview so far. For those of you still with us, thank you very much, and I hope you're enjoying the content. But this is now the 10 players to watch list. We do kind of famed for this in our pre-season podcast, especially the Swedish one. I think is very exciting because there's some. Usually, Jonathan comes up with some very good young talent along with some guys to watch, but basically 10 guys to watch for whatever different reasons. So Jonathan, take it away. Who's the first man on your list?
Yeah, congratulations to anyone who's made it this far. Like Steve has said, this is a very sort of special part of the podcast for me anyway. I enjoy it very much. I always enjoy looking back at the ones we got right and the ones we got wrong from the season before as well. So, in recent seasons, we've got quite a few quite right, haven't we? And done pretty well. So hopefully I will not let you down on this one. First player on my list, Steve, I'm going for Leo Bengtsson. He's a 22-year-old left-sided wide player for Beko Häcken.
Leo Bengtsson. Now he's one of the older players on your list here. What's the thing to look out for him in this year then?
Bengtsson's one that I actually came across when I was living in Sweden. He really, really excited me as a young player. He was at Hammarby, and he's had a big reputation about him for many, many years, really. And he never made it at Hammarby in the end. And I always felt to myself, it was a player I always used to buy on Football Manager and stuff because he became really good in those early days. And I always felt to myself they'd missed a bit of a trick. And I thought, it's a bit of a shame he's not going to make it in terms of how big his reputation was. He was picked up he had a few loan spells, and then he was eventually picked up by Häcken in 2020. And I think it's a masterstroke. And 2020 season, he sort of proved it. He's really started to prove that ability he had. He got 10 goals in 32 games. Really good first season at Beko Häcken. And in my personal opinion, Steve, I think his stock is on the rise. I think he's a player who, I think this will, although, he's already had his breakthrough season last year, you could say, I think he'll go on even further this season. I think now he's established himself in Allsvenskan, I think he can lift that 10 goals to maybe sort of 10 to 15 potentially, or maybe sort of 10 plus X amount of assists. Very creative. He's going to be a bit more settled now. He had some injury problems at one point. I think he can end up really going far, and I think he could be the next sort of Dalaho Irindust of this team who maybe gets a big move. I really like him. He's sort of a good player in the final third. He's got a good game understanding. He's got quite clinical, quite cool-headed when he's in that final third. And I think he's a player who, like I say, I could see him getting a move maybe in this next year. So, as I say, I really like Leo Bengtsson from a young age. I think he's matured now, but he's still very young. And I think he could be a key player for this Häcken team. So, yep, first one on my list, Leo Bengtsson.
Yeah, I mean, you said Häcken certainly could go well this year. He could be a key man for them, even, if they maybe win the title. So, second man on your list is a Djurgården player. Who is he?
Yeah, second player on my list is Steve Edward Chilufya. He is a Djurgården striker, and there's big expectations on this player this season. And a part of the reason for that is just because he's been around the block. He's been at Djurgården for a while now. Never really quite made it. I think he's had some bad problems actually. I think he had a family tragedy when he first joined, which stalled him for a bit. He came from Zambia. He was really good form for Zambia under 20s, and that was what led to his signing. As I said earlier, Djurgården have always had quite sort of creative recruitment. Peter McGregor we talked about. Chilufya is one of those, and he's been around, but not. He's not really kicked on. Last season he did okay, but this is the year where I think he will really kick on. There's big expectations about him now. Now we talked about Joel Osoro. Osoro said that he's nicknamed Chilufya, and he said that Chile. When I look at him, I think to myself, oof, oof, oof. So basically said that he's seriously hot player, and he's really looking forward to playing with him. And he said that he just needs to keep calm and just keep doing what he's doing because he thinks he's going to be a massive player this season for Djurgården. So he's a striker. He can play on the wide areas, but I think he's more of a goal getter. And, they've had players like that going in the past, haven't they? Players like Tino Kadewere, Aliou Badge, players like that have gone on. Of course, other players like that in the past as well. So I think he could potentially be the next one off that sort of pipeline. So Edward Chilufya is on my list.
Chile by name, and let's hope his finishing doesn't go stone cold this year. Hey, we're going to stay in Stockholm. Actually, got a goalkeeper on your list. I always get excited when you put a goalkeeper on your 10 to watch list, Jonathan. I do like my goalkeepers, as you know. So who is this custodian?
Yeah, we always have these debates. And by the way, just quickly on Chilufya, he scored 6 goals in 5 games in the Swedish Cup. So that just tells you everything you need to know about his potential there. A goal every 72 minutes. So he is in red-hot Chile form. I've got in goal Oliver Dovin. He's an 18-year-old at Hammarby. And I'm not entirely sure he's even going to make the team. So it's a bit of maybe a wild card one. They've got David Usted, who's 36. So it's really, really someone who's double the age of another one. They're competing for that goalkeeper spot. But let me just read you the quotes from Hammarby's sporting director on Oliver Dovin. He is one of Europe's biggest goalkeeping talents. He really has everything. He is good in the air. He is responsive. He is good with his feet and good in the line. He really has everything. And besides that, he is a pretty good size too. Stefan Bilbon also has praised him, saying that he's got a great size about him. He's been on trial at Brighton. Now, Brighton, they know what they're doing when it comes to youth recruitment. You know, they're always on top of it. So that's also a good sign. He was on my radar last season, but he didn't make it into the team. He was loaned out and that kind of thing. I think this could be the year he breaks through. There's sort of Petr Cech vibes about him, to be honest, in terms of reputation. People really think he could go on to a massive club. So I don't know if I'll get it right in terms of if this is the year for his breakthrough, but I have to have him on the list, Oliver Dovin, because if he does, and he has featured in preseason in certain games, if he does break through, then it's going to be really, really exciting to see how he develops.
Too good to miss out on if he breaks through. That's why you've got to get him on this list, isn't it? Really, but let's go to Gothenburg. There's actually quite a few players from the Gothenburg region on this list this year. First one, we're going to IFK. Oscar Williamson.
Yeah, and he's a young player who may not. He may not break through, but I think it's one of those ones where if he does break through, then we need to have him on the list. In terms of Dovin being at Hammarby, one player that I had on my list last year, Akun Kimbiamu, like I said, it's a real shame that I can't have him this year because he didn't make it last year, but I think this year he'll be incredible. Wilhelmsen is another one in that sense because he's got a lot of talk about him. There's all this talk about Hamzik, there's all this talk about all these other young players from IFK. Wilhelmsen is the youngest scorer of all time at IFK, scored in the cup game at 15 years old in 2019. He was approached by Borussia Dortmund, but he decided he didn't want to go there because he didn't want to join the youth teams. He felt that he wanted to make it IFK and just play senior football. Only 17 years old. He's a Premier League club's come in for him already. And Simon Tern, who's just come from Norrköping, of course, to IFK, said he has a sledgehammer of a shot that is unmatched, unparalleled, he said. If he can get everything in place, he will explode. Now, I don't think he means kind of like Bomberman explode. I think he means kind of on the field. But he's got a huge amount of talent, Wilhelmsen. He's really talked about as kind of like the next Benjamin Nygren, if that makes sense. I think IFK are a little bit light up front, if I'm honest. They've got a lot of midfielders, and a lot of midfield recruitment. And obviously Marcus Berger is going to come in. But until he does come in, they've only got Stig Thorsen and Robin Soda. So I think Wilhelmsen has a chance. He might not get in the team immediately. He might not get in the team for the whole season, but he could actually get in the team between now and Marcus Berger arriving in the summer. So this will be his little window maybe to come in. IFK do give chances to young players, and Wilhelmsen is one that he's already scored as a 15-year-old. So that just tells you a little bit about him. He's got a big future, I think.
Next on the list, we've got a player from Kalmar. This is new territory. I can't ever remember you having a Kalmar player in the 10 players to watch. I may be mistaken there, but this feels like new territory, Jonathan.
Kalmar, yeah. Well, I had a Kalmar player last season, but it didn't really work out. He didn't play much game time. So I'm going to go for it again. I'm going to go for Noah Shamoun. Now, he is a player who, like I said, he turned down Parma. And he's a really, there's a video on YouTube, I think on Vimeo, in fact, if you Google him. He's an 18-year-old sort of wild player. And, I talked about the new manager there, and Henrik Rydström, and how he might bring in a new blend of football there at Kalmar, might try and bring this passing style. And I think Noah Shamoun could maybe be a breakthrough player in that sense because, if you remember sort of Stefano Vecchia, Sagita, the players up front at Sirius last season, I think Shamoun could fit into that maybe potentially if they do go for that sort of tactical setup with Rydström. He's a technical box-to-box player. He can do he describes himself as someone who can do everything for the team. He said, "I'm very strong and good at finding players on the ground." Pettersson said he's a very exciting young player who's gained 2 years of experience in the third division and is ranked very highly. He's good one-on-one, good in combination game, has tools to be a good finisher, and is a player who works very hard for the team. And like I say, his goals reel is really, really nice. He can do a bit of everything really in terms of finishing, 1v1, the kind of creative play. He can beat a man, can take them on as a dribbler. So, at 18, it's very young. He will need to break into that team. But if he does break into it, I think Rydström might maybe be willing to give him a chance. And if he does, he's certainly got the technical quality to sort of make an impact. So he might be one off the bench, that kind of thing. Might not maybe be an immediate starter, but I think as part of Kalmar's new sort of generation, Noah Shamoon is one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that one completely escaped my attention from last year. Isaac Janssen was your man to watch from Kalmar. That I really do not remember talking like him, but you can't remember everything, can you? So let's move on to our next player on the list. This is player number 6, and we're going back to Stockholm here and back to Hammarby.
We are indeed, and I've tried to vary up the teams as much as I can, but ultimately there's some standout players that I can't really ignore. So on this one, I've gone for the next Odilan Kosanu potentially, and he wasn't in my 10 to watch, Steve, until the cup semi-final against Djurgården. Now he scored the winner. This lad, Ouattara Mohammed, and Aziz Ouattara Mohammed. Now, Hammarby always do a bit of recruitment in African countries, and they always sort of tend to do fairly well. Kosanu obviously played 5 games and then he was gone, and I think this could be the next one off the sort of production line. Really, he looks like a real sort of unit in that defense. Sorry, and I think he could be a really good player for them. He's a young player, of course. Born in 2001. He's already in the team. As an Ivorian. They do have a couple of players coming through. You might remember a player called Rooney, Steve. And you remember we sort of had a bit of a laugh about him, didn't we? When he was a younger player. He's now at Hammarby, and he's come along a bit since he's been there. So they have got 1 or 2 players, a Ghanaian, I think he is. They do have 1 or 2 players who are sort of coming along now. I'll be honest, Ouattara's winning goal against Djurgården was a bit of a fluke, kind of just bounced off him a little bit in the box. But and he celebrated a Ronaldo celebration, and some people came in for a bit of criticism doing the big Ronaldo celebration. But he is a sort of a real tall unit of a player, physically dominant, physically imposing, not bad technically, can probably improve a little bit. But he looks like a player who is one of those who Hammarby always have a player who stays like half a season and is gone. And this season it could potentially be Ouattara Mohammed.
Brilliant. So let's move on to the next player, and it's at Malmö. Amin Sarr.
Yeah, and we talked about him last season, didn't we? We did a player in focus on him, and he was one of the players in focus. I've gone for Amin Sarr just because I think this season he's part of, I had to have a Malmö player in there really. There's 1 or 2 others I could name, but I think it's potentially a breakthrough year for Sarr. I think he'll have more opportunities this season. I think he'll have, the opportunity to sort of get more game time, which he'll need. There'll be I think Birgit is he's not exactly a traditional right winger, even though he played there quite a lot. I think Sarr came off the bench quite a lot and was really sort of showed his speed and Malmö sometimes lack a bit of speed and a bit of fast pace on the break and that kind of thing, and I think Sarr brings that. So that's why he's in there. He's 20 years old. He shone immediately really after his debut. He's been given a contract now until 2023, and Malmö sports director Daniel Andersson said he's shown impressive development. We know his potential, and we took a chance when we had it to get him. He's an exciting player with excellence and speed, and he combines speed with technique. He's also a humble guy who knows what it is to work hard, and that is what counts. So, yeah, like I say, I think Sarr will get more game time. I think he'll get more starts this season. If Kolak doesn't make it, then Sarr could also maybe play as a forward, but I'm not sure about his finishing capabilities. Maybe he has to work on that. But he's one of those players that you could sort of imagine, Steve, has sort of a good season, maybe like Paulos Abraham last year, and then goes off to sort of the Netherlands or something like that. So I'm excited to watch him because I think he just adds a bit more of a, like I say, excitement about Malmö. He makes them a little bit more dynamic, a bit more fluid, a bit more strong offensively. Whereas Birgit and Toivonen are a little bit sort of slow, maybe plodding, even though they are very good players. So yeah, so I'm excited to watch the season, and I think he will be one for people to watch too, and maybe even having their fantasy team.
Interesting one. And I did mention when we talked about Örebro earlier that we got a player from them in this 10 to watch, and we didn't really go in detail on Örebro this year. So I'm interested to hear about this player that you've got in your 10 to watch from Örebro.
Yeah, I've gone for David Sega. Now, I don't often pick horrible players because they're often, a bit older, really. They don't tend to have too many young players, to be honest, bringing through. But they've got one or two coming through now. I mentioned Dennis Collander in the preview. And Sega's a 21-year-old who's already sort of making big moves in that Örebro team. Came in and started to do quite well. I think he's played in some Swedish youth teams. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but he signed from Sollentuna in the third division. Now, Sollentuna have really brought through a lot of players in that third division who've joined Allsvenskan teams this last year or so. And there's big expectations of Sega this season. He had a good debut campaign, 3 goals, 5 assists in 27 games, which is not bad, for a young player coming from the third tier. And I think now he will become sort of a starting midfield player there. He can also play up front, but I think he'll be more used as a centre midfielder or right midfielder. He's quite versatile. He can also play sort of maybe secondary left mid. But I think he'll get more game time this season. I think maybe Kevin Walker can learn from his experience with players sort of leaving like Robin Book and Basara. I think he'll have a bit more game time, like I say. And yeah, I think he can sort of kick on and keep improving. So yeah, I think at 21, he's a decent age, decent technical profile. Maybe not hugely quick, but I think he's got quite good vision, quite good awareness about him, quite good technical rounder. So yeah, good player to watch, I think. And it's nice to have a player from a smaller maybe club.
Yeah, it really is. I like it when that happens. And this is kind of another example here. A player to watch, in your opinion, for 2021 is Blair Turgott at Östersunds.
Yeah, and it's obviously I don't often have too many older players, do I, Steve? But I've got 2 reasons for doing this. Partly selfish reasons, I'll be honest, and partly because I think it's as simple as this. I think if Blair Turgott doesn't perform this season, then I think Östersunds will go down. So I mentioned the English trio there, Juno Baptiste, Turgott and Sellers. They've also got Nabiu Perry, but really they are quite light up front. And so I think Turgott sort of is traditionally a right winger. He came from West Ham's academy as a youngster, played in non-league, played at Maidstone and places like that. And that's where my personal selfish interests come in, because I like comparing the different leagues in England to the leagues in Sweden. And you often get accusations that kind of say non-league, there's no good players in those leagues. And Turgott's gone out there and he scored 7 goals last season. And he really, after Ian Birchnell left, I think Turgott was quite key to them sort of staying up. He started to blossom a little bit under the new manager and kind of grew. There was big rumours with linking him to sort of OIK. Apparently AIK were looking at him and 1 or 2 other clubs sort of maybe wanting him this summer. But I think from Östersund's point of view, they can't afford to lose too many more players. And I think it is as simple as that. If Turgott gets the goals, they'll stay up. If he doesn't get the goals, I think they'll go down, because I'm not sure who else is going to get goals for them, as I say. So, yeah, number one, I'm interested to see how he, sort of being the main man now, how he treats that. And it's a key year for him, maybe going into the prime years of his career. Number 2, I think it's interesting to see how English players can get on abroad and how, can a non-league player become one of the top players in Allsvenskan. And number 3, like I say, it's as simple as that. If he gets the goals, Östersunds have a chance. If he doesn't get the goals, they will go down. So it'll be interesting to see how he,
I like that pick. I do like that pick. It's definitely a player to watch for in a different sort of way to some of the other selections. So the 10th pick, although I am hearing some news that there is a bonus 11th selection on your list coming in. The 10th pick, we go back to Häcken here with a right winger.
Yeah, I've got just about enough breath for 2 more players. We can't stop talking, can we? So we've got a bonus player to watch. But my final one on this list of 10, I had to leave him. I had to get him in the team, having watched him in pre-season. It's back to Häcken. It's back to Gothenburg. It's Benny Traore. Now, I could have picked Tobias Heinz because I really like what I saw in pre-season of him. And I've also got Leo Bengtsson. So, it's a bit harsh. Maybe I could have picked maybe Adik Benner. I could have picked Ishal Abdul Razak, for example. I could have picked others at different clubs. Could have picked 1 or 2 maybe from Elfsborg, Jack Cooper Love, someone like that maybe as well. But I've gone for Benny Traore just because he looks so good in pre-season that I can't ignore him. He's already in the first team. He's already like a solid starter at 18 years old for Häcken. Some Häcken fans will remember Nasiru Mohammed. He kind of reminds me a bit of him. He's a very vertical player, very, very sort of straight line runner, but he's got a little bit of skill about him. He's described as very exciting and talented by Häcken's sporting director. I mentioned they had a left back, Häcken from Ivory Coast, Yannick Adjoumani. He also joined at the same time as Benny Traore. But the difference is, Adjumani has an option to buy and it's a loan. Benny Traore was given a 4-year contract immediately. Now, that tells you a little bit about the confidence they have in him to do well this season. He's a direct, quick, wide player. I see a lot of promise in him. Like I say, Nasiru Mohammed did really well at Häcken for a while, along with Paulinho and that team back in the day, a few years ago. I see Traore as that next kind of generation player. He's been really creative in pre-season. He can beat a man. He's quick. And if you've got Bengtsson on one side and Traore on the other side, they could form a really nice combination with Tobias Heinz in behind Yeremiev. I think that's a fantastic potential front four. So I couldn't leave Traore out, because if he does hit the ground running, I think he will be a starter. If he hits the ground running, then who knows how long he'll be around in Allsvenskan for. So he'll take some time to develop. I'm not saying he's going to be immediately finished article, but everything I've seen of him in pre-season I like, and I think he's quite naturally suited to Allsvenskan. So, yep, Benny Adama Traore.
So that is your 10 to watch, but there is another player that we had to include on this list. I'll let you reveal who he is, but we're staying in Gothenburg, and this probably won't come as a surprise to too many people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bonus. It's just an obvious one. I mean, if you're anyone who's watching Allsvenskan this season, you're tuning in to watch the games, or you've got any kind of interest. I'm hoping they might bring it on Eurosport or something like that this season. Maybe we'll see. But of course, everybody's going to be having their eyes on one player only, and that is Marek Hamsik. I couldn't leave him out of my 10 to watch. Well, he's a bonus player, obviously, but I've gone for many, many young players. But this is a 33-year-old. Their first game this season is Örebro away. All eyes will be on Marek Hamsik. Will he start? Will he not start? Is his injury okay? He's only there for a half season, obviously. Then he goes to the Euros, and then they'll negotiate whether he stays. I really hope he does stay. He might not stay, because we'll see where it goes. He had a lot of big offers elsewhere, but he's committed himself to Sweden. He said he felt he likes the vibe. He said it's a bit like being in Napoli, that family feeling, he said. So catch him while you can. First game, like I say, this weekend. See how he goes if he gets in the squad. And every game he's there in Allsvenskan is going to be blockbuster. Everyone's going to be wanting to watch him. And let's just hope the fans can go and see, IFK fans can go and sort of greet him, because it is a blockbuster move. It adds sort of pizzazz and spice to the league. It's like a Hollywood movie signing, really, for this division. So get yourself to watch Marek Hamsik.
Yeah, Marek Hamsik, the oldest player I think you've ever had in this 10 to watch. And I'd imagine he will. That is a record, unless Zlatan comes back to Sweden, then I'd imagine that's a record that will always stand in your 10 to watch. But just before we finish it, should he tear up the league? For those who there'll be some people thinking, he's going to absolutely cakewalk this league. In theory, he should go well, but is it going to be so easy for him? The
head says no, but the heart says yes. I think that he is an unbelievable player. Has he still got the level? I'm not sure. But if you remember Hamsik at Napoli in his prime, I mean, that is way, way, way levels above Allsvenskan. I think he'll be the sort of player who, because he's not exactly match fit, I think he'll take a while actually to get going. But I think he'll be the sort of player where he'll rock up one game and score a hat trick. You know what I mean? There'll be certain games where he'll be on it, and when he's on it, the question is, can he get the service around him? Because he's a bit of a provider as well. He's not necessarily an out-and-out goal scorer. He sort of arrives in the box from midfield. He's a creator as well. So can the people around him finish the chances that he's going to naturally create? Physique-wise, at 33, I don't think he'll have a problem. He's got to get fit for the Euros, so he's got that target in his mind of being ready for it. So it's not like he's come for a payday and he doesn't care and he's going to be on the beers and going out with some Swedish blondes and that kind of thing in the town. He's there for a reason. It's to focus. It's to get his head down. He's left China and he wants to sort of have a place for him to refocus his mind for the Euros, because that is his big focus. He's a massive player for his country. But naturally in the sense of like IFK, are they on his level? I'm not sure. And so, as I say, I think there'll be games where he scores 2, gets 2 assists. He will light up the league in certain matches. Can he do it consistently? We'll see. I mean, if he does do it consistently, then that 7th place prediction could well easily turn into sort of top 4, top 3, if he's on it every single week. But it's going to depend a lot as well. And just the fact that IFK are bringing back quite a few big players as well. I mean, if they all come together in gel, Marcus Bale, players like that, you never know. IFK could suddenly turbocharge themselves. So there's a massive upside potential with that IFK team, but it will take some time to gel, I think. So we'll see. but he's definitely way above Allsvenskan level, like way above it, you'd think, for a 33-year-old.
Yeah, so the 11 players to watch: Leo Bengtsson at Häcken, Edward Chilufa at Djurgården, Oliver Dovin at Hammarby, Oscar Williamson at IFK Göteborg, Noah Shamoun at Kalmar, Aziz Ouattara Mohammed at Hammarby, Amin Sarr, Malmö, David Seger at Örebro. I know I've pronounced that one wrong. Blair Turgut at Östersunds, Benny Traore at Häcken, and of course Marek Hamsik at IFK Göteborg. Jonathan Fadugba's 11 to watch in 2021 in Allsvenskan. It's been a mammoth podcast. It's nearly 2.5 hours long, the longest we've ever done, for sure. Anyone who's still listening to this now, give yourself a massive pat on the back. But thank you very much indeed for your support. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. It was absolutely fantastic content. I really enjoyed it. Do remember to hit us up on Twitter at Nordic Foot Pod. You can follow me at Meatman Soccer. And where can we find you, Jonathan?
You can find me lying down having a big rest after this podcast. I think I've spoken more in this 2 hours than I have in about 3 months. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JFootball as well, FUTBOL. Please hit up patreon.com/Nordic Football Podcast. We're going subscription free this season. We're going advertising free for the beginning of the season. But if you do want to support us to keep us ad free, then please hit that up and buy us a beer or that kind of thing. Patreon.com/Nordic Football Podcast. Don't forget to hit up the Fantasy Allsvenskan, get your team in before Saturday. Let us know who you're supporting, who you think will win the league, what you think of the predictions, and I'll tend to watch as well, of course. And yeah, if you've made it to the end of the show, well done. Hopefully we haven't bored you to tears. I've certainly heard enough of my voice for a good few days, so I might not say much to my family for the next few days, but hope you've enjoyed the show. And yeah, I can't wait for this new season. It's going to be really, really good. I think there's a lot of intrigue in this league now. The levels of the teams are sort of evening out. So I think we will have a really, really exciting season. And in the weeks to come, we'll be bringing you everything we can on both leagues. So thanks a lot for listening.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much. Like Jonathan said, we'll see you around again very soon. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye.